Chapter 700. The mountain range where the Thousand Illusionary Sword sect is located has a natural trapping array. They used the 9 array cores of this natural array as the foundation to set up the Thousand Illusionary 9 Pavilion Sword array. This deep pool is one of the array cores. I only found this place by chance. Ozu explained. Lung Shichi was also somewhat puzzled. Since this is the array core, it's extremely important to the Thousand Illusionary Sword sect. Why is there no one guarding it? It's all because the people of the Thousand Illusionary Sword sect think they're smart. They think that the more unguarded it is, the less people will think that this is the array core. Moreover, this array core is naturally formed. Although it's in the deep pool, no one knows its exact location. So that's how it is. Then how can Brother Ziyu determine the location of the array core? Ozu gave Leng Shichi a meaningful look and said, I couldn't before but I can now. Immediately after, Ozu sat on the ground, his entire body emitting a mysterious aura. His fingers flew up and after a dozen breaths of time, he suddenly said, Found it. Lung Shichi could see that Ozu seemed to have obtained an extraordinary ability from the inheritance of the king of Xuanhuan. Thanks to Brother Lu, the inheritance I obtained is related to the art of divination. Everything in the world, including the 5 elements and yin and yang, can be traced. I've already found the location of the array core. Ozu said with a smile. His eyes were filled with gratitude towards Lung Shichi. The art of divination. Lung Shichi was also quite surprised. He had heard of the art of divination before. Those divination masters could lock onto the location of people, things with just a few clues. They could even predict the future. However, there were very few divination masters. They were even rarer than alchemy grandmasters. In any case, Lung Shichi had never met one before. Now, Ozu had obtained this ability from the inheritance of the king of Xuanhuan. Moreover, he could easily deduce the exact location of the array core. This alone was shocking enough. He said, Brother Ziyu having this ability is great news for the underworld. It will be much easier to deal with the Thousand Illusionary Sword sect this time. Exactly. It isn't just this formation core, I'm able to deduce the location of the other 8 formation cores as well. So long as we tamper with the formation cores, then the illusory 9 Pavilion Sword formation might not even be able to activate normally. Leave this matter to me. I can secretly destroy these array cores without anyone noticing. Ozu's words were filled with hatred for the Thousand Illusion Sword sect. Lung Shichi nodded. Ozu had the ability to deduce. As long as he did not take the initiative to show himself, no one would be able to discover him. As long as he could get rid of the Thousand Illusions 9 Pavilion Sword formation, there would be no more trouble in attacking the Thousand Illusion Sword sect. This encounter with Ozu had really helped him a lot. In that case, we'll be rid of Brother Ziyu. This thing can help us pass on information. Lung Shichi took out a small ball and handed it to him. This was actually what Li Jueqing used to use in the past. Li Jueqing had planted spies around eunuch Gao and Lung Shichi. As long as there was important information, it would be passed on through this thing. Now it had fallen into the hands of Lung Shichi. He left Ozu here to continue looking for the formation cores and tampering with them, while he himself teleported back to Pinghui City through the Fate skill. After a day, when Lung Shichi saw Wu Yi again, he found that he was standing in front of a burly man with thick eyebrows, bowing his head and waist. Seeing Lung Shichi return, he hurriedly said, Lord Lu, this is General Lin, one of the 3 generals of the East guarding Thunder Flame Army. General Lin, this is the new chief of the Dark Thunder Guards, Lord Lu. General Lin was clad in armor. Just by standing there, he gave people a feeling of unparalleled dominance. He was an expert of the Tianyuan realm who guarded a region. He said in a very deep voice, You are Lu Xingji. You have become one of the 4 chiefs in the Gang Spirit realm. You are quite capable. General Lin, you flatter me. Lung Shichi said modestly, I heard that General Lin once guarded the customs and defeated tens of thousands of troops from overseas countries by yourself. Your courage is admirable. General Lin's name was Lin Yuanliang. He was one of the 3 generals of the East guarding Thunder Flame Army and was responsible for guarding the coastal border of Donglin County. The Falling Star continent was surrounded by the sea. Naturally, there were many islands. Over time, some sects, forces and dynasties of various sizes would form. 10 years ago, the countries of the East Sea tried to plot against Donglin County. They were quite smart. They bypassed the border and sneaked ashore through a small path. They thought that they would be able to catch the Thunderblaze dynasty off guard, but in the end they bumped into Lin Yuanliang. Lin Yuanliang showed his invincible power and killed a Tianyuan realm expert of the countries of the East Sea by himself. What's more, the army was utterly defeated and fled back to the East Sea. Since then, Lin Yuanliang's name shocked the whole Thunderflame army. With such a powerful cultivator and the old man from the Imperial Hall of Worship, how could the aged Thousand Illusion Swordmaster be a match for the two of them? It seemed that everything was ready to destroy the Thousand Illusion Sword sect. Lin Yuanliang acted as if he didn't hear Ling Shiqi's flattery and said bluntly, "I've always been straightforward. I heard that Lord Lu has a way to gather the disciples of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect and plans to break the Thousand Illusion 9 Pavilion Sword formation. How are the preparations?" Wu Yi knew that Ling Shiqi's temper wasn't very good. Now that Lin Yuanliang was so aggressive, he was afraid that the two would have a conflict. He immediately tried to smooth things over. "General Lin, I just received news that the Thousand Illusion Sword sect has begun to gather all the external disciples. It's said that it's a celebration for the 9th prince to become the crown prince." Lei Haoqing? Crown prince? Lin Yuanliang raised his eyebrows. "This is different from what I know." Before he finished his sentence, he suddenly paused and clapped his hands. "So that's how it is. Lord Lu only used one day to make the Thousand Illusion Sword sect receive false information and believe it to be true. Just based on this, regardless of what others say, I acknowledge you as one of the 4 great chiefs." Lung Shiqi continued, "Not only that, I also found the Thousand Illusion 9 Pavilion Sword formation's core and secretly tampered with it. This formation is no longer a threat." Hearing this, Wu Yi and Lin Yuanliang were both shocked and felt that it was too unreal. In just one day he had given the Thousand Illusionary Sword sect false information, found the array core of the sect protecting formation, and even tampered with it. Was there really someone who could do this? Lung Shiqi really thought that the Thousand Illusion Sword sect was his own backyard and that he could come and go as he pleased without anyone noticing. What was even stranger was that they had never heard of Lung Shiqi knowing how to use formations. To be able to easily find the sect protecting formation's core and even tamper with it, one had to be a great formation master. After just a few words, Lin Yuanliang felt that Lung Shiqi seemed to be hiding many secrets. Wu Yi was even more unable to see through Lung Shiqi. He secretly thought that he was indeed extraordinary to be able to become one of the 4 great chiefs at such a young age. Chapter 701. After that, Lung Shiqi, Lin Yuanliang, and Wu Yi discussed the details of the plan. In 2 days they would attack the Thousand Illusion Sword sect. The Dark Thunder Guards and Discipline Commission of the Pinghui Prefecture began to move. All the experts split up and arrived near the Thousand Illusion Sword sect. The 10,000 soldiers of the Eastern Suppression Thunder Flame Army were also ready. Every soldier here was at least at the Spirit Transformation realm. They could be called the best army of the Thunderflame dynasty. 2 days later, it was time for the Thousand Illusion Sword sect to hold their celebration. Originally they wanted to invite the nearby sects to participate, but it was too rushed, so they gave up. As long as they spread the news, those sects would come to flatter them in the future. On this day the Thousand Illusion Sword sect master, Wei Qian, and several elders at the Unity of Heaven realm were sitting in a large square. In front of them were tens of thousands of disciples. Even though the Thousand Illusion Sword sect had declined, it was still a top sect. There were still many people who wanted to join the Thousand Illusion Sword sect. In the past, they were most worried about the talented disciples. Sect Master Wei Qian stood up. His face was flushed red. He had also inquired about the news from the imperial capital. The response he received was just as Lung Shiqi had said. Wei Qian was sure of it, so he decided to hold the celebration. The only thing that made him feel suspicious was that Ji Guang had secretly left the mountain. But this time Wei Qian didn't care too much. It was as if he could already see the Thousand Illusion Sword sect rising again and standing among the strong. His mentality had changed due to the great joy. At this moment he began to talk at length. Many of the disciples were very excited. However, just when they were at their most excited and happy, a voice came from the distance. The Thousand Illusion Sword sect is holding a celebration without inviting guests. How low-key. I came uninvited, please forgive me. Yu Qiyin frowned and turned around with all the disciples, only to see a few disciples who were guarding the mountain running up in a panic. They shouted as they ran, "Head, the Dark Thunder Guards and the people from the Discipline Commission are here. Many masters are blocking the mountain gate." Why are the Dark Thunder Guards and Discipline Commission here at this time? Wei Qian was filled with doubt. Usually they didn't interfere with each other's business. Now that the Thousand Illusionary Sword sect had made a great contribution, could it be that they were here to congratulate them? After all, the status of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect would no longer be the same as before. It would definitely be higher than the Discipline Commission and the Dark Thunder Guards, so it was reasonable for them to come and congratulate him. However, Wei Qian heard that the voice was full of sarcasm and ridicule. It seemed that the visitor was not friendly. "Let's go and take a look," he ordered, and all the cultivators walked toward the mountain gate. When they saw Leng Shiqi standing at the front in his black and red official robe, and behind him were thousands of dark thunder guards and masters of the discipline commission, each with a stern look, Wei Qian had a bad feeling. He didn't recognize Leng Shiqi, but he recognized the official uniform he was wearing. It was clearly the uniform of the Dark Thunder Guard's 4th Chief Steward. When Wei Qian contacted the imperial capital, he also knew that the Dark Thunder Guard had a Gang Spirit Realm 4th Chief Steward. At first he secretly mocked him, but now he saw him. Wei Qian didn't think that the 4th Chief Steward came to the Thousand Illusionary Sword sect in person to congratulate him. He symbolically cupped his hands. In terms of status, he didn't think that he was inferior to the 4th Chief Steward. "You must be Lord Lu. Congratulations on your high position at such a young age. I wonder what brings you to our Thousand Illusionary Sword sect?" Leng Shiqi said 2 words, "Gifts." "What gifts?" Swish. Leng Shiqi took out an imperial edict and said, "By His Majesty's order, the Thousand Illusionary Sword sect colluded with the 9th Prince to disturb the imperial court and meddle in the battle for the Crown Prince." "Nonsense." Wei Qian immediately shouted, "Our Thousand Illusionary Sword sect clearly helped the 9th Prince to become the Crown Prince. How can we be guilty?" "Lord Lu, don't talk nonsense. You should know that trouble comes from careless talk." Leng Shiqi sneered, "Wei Qian, do you think I'm here to play with you? Cut the crap. Today is the day your Thousand Illusionary Sword sect will be destroyed." "Aha, ridiculous." Wei Qian laughed disdainfully, "You want to destroy our Thousand Illusionary Sword sect? It's too ridiculous. Lord Lu, you're so young. Why is your brain not working well?" "General Lin, it's time for you to show up," Leng Shiqi said to the air in the distance. Immediately, dense figures swarmed out from all directions. Those people were neat and uniform and surrounded the Thousand Illusionary Sword sect at an extremely fast speed. Wei Qian's expression changed. He recognized that those people were the East Guarding Thunderflame army of the Thunderflame dynasty. There were more than 10,000 people as far as the eye could see. When did so many people hide near the Thousand Illusionary Sword sect? At this moment he withdrew his disdain and arrogance. If these tens of thousands of East Guarding Thunderflame army were added, the Thousand Illusionary Sword sect would really face a bitter battle. However, what truly frightened him was that, at some unknown time, there was a person standing high in the sky, looking down at them from above. That gaze was like looking at a group of dead people. This person was Lin Yuanliang. Due to his great reputation in the coastal provinces, he was quickly recognized by many disciples of the Thousand Illusionary Sword sect. Wei Qian was even more shocked. You're Lin Yuanliang." At this moment, his heart sank to the bottom of the valley. If he was worried about a bitter battle, he finally realized that the Thousand Illusionary Sword sect might really be destroyed today. Others might still think that they were lucky. After all, the Thousand Illusionary Sword sect also had the heavenly origin stage Thousand Illusionary Sword Sovereign. However, as the sect leader, Wei Qian knew better than anyone that their supreme elder was already in a weakened state. How could he be a match for Lin Yuanliang? Leng Shiqi said, "Wei Qian, do you still think that my words are laughable? General Lin, a long delay may lead to trouble. Give the order." Lin Yuanliang did not answer. He pointed one finger at the sky and the wind and clouds changed. Then he clawed down. As if tearing the sky and earth apart, 5 hair-thin black lines appeared in the void. Wei Qian was shocked. If he touched it he would die instantly. However, suddenly, a bright sword light shot up into the sky from the back mountain of the Thousand Illusionary Sword sect. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a shocking sword radiance and cut off the 5 black lines. An extremely old figure appeared across the sky. He was the supreme elder of the Thousand Illusionary Sword sect, the Thousand Illusionary Sword Sovereign. Lin Yuanliang said coldly, "Let me see how much power the supreme elder of the Thousand Illusionary Sword Sovereign has left." Leng Shiqi looked at Wei Qian and the disciples of the Thousand Illusionary Sword sect. His killing intent rose and he waved his hand, "Kill." Chapter 702. More than 10,000 masters rushed up at once, especially the East Town Thunder Flame Army, the Dark Thunder Guards, and the masters in the Oneness of Heaven and Men realm and the Gang Spirit realm of the Discipline Department. They took the lead and rushed over like a sharp knife. All the disciples of the Thousand Illusionary Sword sect immediately panicked. Just a moment ago, it was still a celebratory atmosphere, but now it was a disaster. Although they were disciples of top sects and had their own pride, they still found it difficult to remain calm in the face of life and death. Yuqian's face darkened. He knew that he could not panic at this time. He also knew that it was difficult to calm people with a few words, so he did not dare to hesitate and immediately shouted, "Open the sword formation of Thousand Illusions 9 pavilions." At present they were far inferior to the Leng Shiqi in both numbers and combat power, so they could only rely on the sect-protecting formation. Moreover, Yuqian was very confident in the sword formation of Thousand Illusions 9 pavilions. Even if Lin Yuanliang was here, as long as the Thousand Illusion Swordmaster was in the formation, he might be able to defeat Lin Yuanliang. He took out a formation plate and poured his spirit force into it. 9 places in the Thousand Illusionary Sword sect lit up with a dazzling light. There was even a trace of a dreamy feeling. Just looking at it would make one feel intoxicated. Seeing this, Yuqian's face finally became a little better. If the formation was opened, they would have the ability to fight. Many disciples of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect were indeed much calmer. The sect-protecting formation has been opened. Is this the sword formation of Thousand Illusions 9 pavilions? It's really powerful. With the protection of the formation, we may be able to fight. However, the next moment Yuqian's expression suddenly froze. Because when the spiritual light of the sword formation of Thousand Illusions 9 pavilions was about to converge into the real formation, it strangely dissipated. Many disciples of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect were also confused. They had never seen the formation open. Could it be that the sword formation of Thousand Illusions 9 pavilions was like this? Yuqian's eyes widened and he almost choked to death. Including him, the senior members of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect knew that the sword formation of Thousand Illusions 9 pavilions had collapsed by itself. One of the formation masters panicked and said, "Leader, the formation eye of the sect-protecting formation has been destroyed. We have a mole here." "What did you say?" Yuqian was so angry that he almost lost control. He instantly turned around and looked at Leng Shiqi. The look in his eyes was as if he wanted to swallow Leng Shiqi alive. "It's you?" Although Wei Qiyan couldn't find out who the traitor was, he was sure that it was Leng Shiqi. Leng Shiqi sneered. In fact, he could have launched a sneak attack directly. There was no need to talk nonsense with Yuqian from the beginning. The reason why he did this was because he wanted to attack the Thousand Illusion Sword sect openly. He wanted to intimidate them with his strength and force Wei Qiyan to activate the sect-protecting formation. The sect protection formation could be considered their strongest protection, and it was also equivalent to a life-saving straw. It could be said that everyone had placed their hopes on the Thousand Illusions 9 pavilion sword formation. When this hope was shattered, the disciples of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect would be at their weakest. When there was hope and then there was despair, after a huge fluctuation in the state of mind, it would also greatly affect their combat effectiveness. Now, tens of thousands of soldiers and secret thunder guards had killed their way into the Thousand Illusion Sword sect. These disciples, who were usually elites of the top sects, were killed without any power to fight back and were utterly defeated. As the saying goes, a defeated army is like a landslide. In this fight, the Thousand Illusion Sword sect was already on the verge of defeat. In addition, in terms of high-end combat effectiveness, Leng Shiqi's side was 3 times that of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect. Moreover, they were all experts carefully cultivated by the Thunderstorm dynasty. Their combat effectiveness was no weaker than that of the disciples of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect. In just a few fights, several disciples of the gang spirit realm of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect had died. Wei Qiyan's mind was blank. He had worked hard all his life to save the Thousand Illusion Sword sect, but he had never thought that the Thousand Illusion Sword sect would face a situation of collapse. What was even more unexpected was that a top sect would be defeated so quickly. Not only was it defeated, but if it went on like this, it would not be long before the Thousand Illusion Sword sect completely disappeared from the world. The sect that Wei Qiyan had worked hard all his life to manage was about to disappear. He could no longer control himself. With red eyes, he rushed directly to the Leng Shiqi like a fierce beast. Wu Yanming and Deng Xinlei, who were beside Leng Shiqi, moved at the same time and stopped in front of him. Wei Qiyan held a 7th-level spiritual sword in his hand and set up a misty sword net with a turn of his hand. Suddenly, the spiritual power of heaven and earth became violent, and Wu Yi and the other 2 were momentarily absent-minded. In this short moment, Wei Qiyan's sword net suddenly broke out, leaving horrible sword marks on the bodies of Wu Yi and the other 2 in an instant. The 3 of them were also at the middle stage of the oneness of heaven and men realm, but they were vulnerable in front of the furious Wei Qiyan. It was not their fault that they were too weak. In fact, since they could become inspectors or supervisors of the secret thunder guards, their combat effectiveness was absolutely among the top of the same level. It could only be said that Wei Qiyan was too strong. He was a great master at the peak of the oneness of heaven and men realm and had been trying to break through to the Xianhuan realm. Not to mention that he was the leader of a top sect and could use all the resources at will. There was no doubt that his strength was strong. However, Wu Yi and the others had also bought some time for Leng Shiqi. Boom! Leng Shiqi activated the wild demon blood beast body and Vajra indestructible divine art. Coupled with the Gu King's possession, his body was filled with all kinds of strange auras that were unpredictable. He held the 10 directions fluttering snow spear in his right hand, and bursts of crimson ice crystals spread out, instantly forming a crimson hell. He held the blood-stained star demonic saber tightly in his left and right hand, and a saber light that could tear heaven and earth slashed out, slashing the physical body and the primordial spirit. Divine night blooming epiphyllum. Leng Shiqi stretched out his arms behind his back, and black and white streams of light intertwined and spiraled. A yin and yang dragon soared in the sky, and the surrounding spiritual power of heaven and earth became chaotic. Flying dragon great void. Just after Wu Yi and the other two were repelled, Wei Qian saw the powerful eruption of Leng Shiqi. He couldn't help but be surprised. Leng Shiqi gave him a feeling that he was more powerful than Wu Yi and the other two masters at the oneness of heaven and men realm. He was only at the gang spirit realm, but he had such a strong fighting capacity. His potential could only be described as terrifying. However, this level of attack was still a little weak in the eyes of Wei Qian. He stood with his sword horizontally and flicked the sword with one finger. In an instant, a sword sound surged out, tearing the crimson hell apart and even twisting the yin and yang dragon. Wei Qian stabbed again. The glaze-like sword light flashed and cut off the short-lived saber light as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. The momentum of the sword light didn't diminish, and it cut the yin and yang dragon in the sky into 2 pieces. Leng Shiqi was shocked. It turned out that the peak of the oneness of heaven and men realm in his heyday was so powerful. When he killed Li Jueqing before, he only saw Hua Luiyue seriously injure Li Jueqing with one move. Now he thought that Hua Luiyue's strength was also abnormally strong. However, this made Leng Shiqi more eager to fight. Anyway, he had 2 masters at the Tianyuan realm here, and there were several masters at the oneness of heaven and men realm from the discipline commission around him. His own safety was guaranteed. Even if there was an accident, he could hide in the mansion of the dead. Since there was no worry, Leng Shiqi also wanted to test his limit on Wei Qian. Chapter 703. Wei Qian easily broke Leng Shiqi's attack, and the killing intent in his heart grew stronger. Even if he couldn't escape the calamity of extermination today, he would drag Leng Shiqi down with him. At this moment, an invisible blade suddenly hit Wei Qian. It was the short-lived primordial spirit saber light. Wei Qian immediately showed some pain. He was also very surprised that there was an invisible saber light that strangely tore at his spiritual power. However, as the sect leader of the 1000 Illusionary Sword sect, he also cultivated illusions. His spiritual power had long condensed into a primordial spirit, and he quickly annihilated the invisible saber light. And Leng Shiqi was not alone. After Wu Yi was forced to retreat, he seized this good opportunity. He slapped out a palm print from afar, but there were eerie ghosts in the palm print, howling incessantly. Yan Ming held a heavy long staff and smashed it down. A staff shadow that was hundreds of feet long blasted toward Wei Qian with great force. Deng Xinlei had the strength to pull up a mountain. His entire body was stirred up with vigorous aura energy. He punched out as if he could shatter mountains and rivers. They knew very well that they were no match for Wei Qian, but as long as they could delay him, the sect leader, it was the best thing for them. Wei Qian was very impatient. With a flip of his left hand, he took out a 7th-level spirit sword. 2 swords came out at the same time. One sword was like dreamy glass that intoxicated people, while the other was like a white steed flashing through a crack as fast as lightning. These were the 2 sword moves in the 1000 Illusionary Sword technique, created by the founder of the 1000 Illusionary Sword sect. One was inclined towards illusions and the other was inclined towards speed. The founder combined the 2 sword moves into one. For a time, he was invincible and had never created such a huge foundation as the 1000 Illusionary Sword sect. Unfortunately, none of his descendants could completely combine the 2 sword moves. At most, they could only use the 2 sword moves separately like Wei Qian. Although the power was definitely not as good as the complete move, it was still powerful enough. The 2 completely different sword moves instantly broke the attack of Wu Yi and the other 2. They didn't stop Wei Qian for long at all. When Wu Yi and the others stopped Wei Qian, Leng Shiqi's 4 arms formed seals at the same time. What was shocking was that he was actually forming 4 completely different seals at the same time. Lung Shiqi's body flashed with red, green, blue and yellow spirit energy. Among them, the red spirit energy soared into the sky. The cry of a phoenix broke through the 9 heavens, and a vivid shadow of a fire bird soared into the sky. Bursts of flames caused the surrounding temperature to rise sharply. 16 heavens transformations, immortal bird. Green spiritual energy spread out, and the wind within a radius of a few miles became violent. Countless wind blades cut through the air and it was like a wind prison. 16 heavens transformations, calling the wind. In the blink of an eye, the blue spiritual power raised monstrous waves, and a huge water dragon overturned the river and the sea, as if it wanted to swallow everything. 16 heaven transformations true insight, water dragon soul. The yellow spiritual energy transformed into a towering mountain peak that covered the sky and the sun. It carried with it the power to shake the earth and kill in all directions. 16 heavens transformations, mountain suppression. Lung Shiqi was actually using 4 7th level spiritual skills at the same time. Such a huge movement immediately attracted everyone's attention. Whether it was the people of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect, the Dark Thunder Guards, the Discipline Commission or the Eastern Thunder Flame Army, they all looked at Lung Shiqi in shock. First of all, 7th level spiritual power was not a cabbage on the roadside. Even among the people present, only those great masters in the oneness of heaven and men realm had 7th level spiritual skills. But even in the oneness of heaven and men realm, none of them dared to say that they could use 4 7th level spiritual skills at the same time. If the new chief of the Dark Thunder Guards had so many powerful spiritual skills when he was in the gang spirit realm, it would be reasonable. After all, it was still possible to obtain 7th level spiritual skills in a high position. But this strength made all the masters blush with shame. Wei Qiyan was shocked by Lung Shiqi again. He also found that the opponent in front of him could always surprise him again and again. It had been like this since Lung Shiqi came to the Thousand Illusion Sword sect. The next moment, something that even surprised Lung Shiqi himself happened. Because the 4 spiritual skills he used were actually a little out of his control. He had forcefully used the 4 great spiritual techniques in order to see how far he could go. However, he had already used them, so how could he lose control? In the air, the firebird flew and the water dragon roared. Strangely, the wind prison suddenly shrank and condensed into a pure white wind spirit tiger. As for the mountain in the sky, it disintegrated and reformed into an incomparably huge Xian tortoise. The firebird, the water dragon, the wind tiger, and the tortoise respectively emitted a radiance that made people not dare to look directly at them. They gathered together and a 4 spirits formation appeared between the sky and the earth. Suddenly the sky and the earth shook. Wisps of primitive gray flowing light outlined the edge of the formation. Waves of origin power were emitted, and all the spiritual and original energy of heaven and earth within a radius of dozens of miles became chaotic. It affected the Thousand Illusion Swordmaster Lin Yuanliang, and the old man who were in the unity of heaven and man stage. The 3 of them subconsciously stopped. Although they were opponents, they had the same feeling at this moment. That was disbelief. Those who were in the celestial realm could not sense it, but the 2 of them clearly felt that Lung Shiqi had mobilized a power that even they could not comprehend. The power of the laws of heaven and earth. The 4 spirits formation rotated and enveloped Wei Qiyan. He suddenly felt a tearing force everywhere as if it was going to tear him apart. The power of the 4 elements of earth, water, wind, and fire surrounded him, making it difficult for him to even breathe. Wei Qiyan made a prompt decision to burn his blood essence and spit out a blood sword. As soon as the blood sword appeared, there was a pulling force that merged his 2 7th level spiritual swords into it. The misty sword radiance flowed gently. He turned into a flowing light and instantly slashed out countless sword shadows. Wei Qiyan actually had some of the true essence of the Thousand Illusion Sword Codex. Unfortunately, in front of the power of the laws of heaven and earth, it was still too weak. Under the strangulation of the 4 spirits formation, Wei Qiyan was completely sealed. No matter how hard he tried to resist, he could not reverse the situation. In the end, the 4 spirits formation exploded, and more than half of the entire Thousand Illusion Sword sect collapsed. Everyone was in a panic, and no one knew how many unlucky people from the Thousand Illusory Sword sect were killed by the 4 spirits formation. Puff. Lung Shiqi suddenly spat out a large amount of blood, and traces of blood appeared on his 7 orifices. However, his eyes were unusually bright and there was a hint of surprise. However, his expression immediately became serious again, because he did not absorb Wei Qiyan's soul. That meant Wei Qiyan was not dead. Rolling his eyes, Lung Shiqi found that Wei Qiyan's body had fallen straight to the ground. His vitality was like a candle in the wind that could disappear at any time, but there was a faint sword shadow protecting his last trace of life. That should be his life-saving trump card, Leng Shiqi guessed. Wei Qiyan was the head of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect, so it was normal for him to have some life-saving trump cards. As long as he forced out this trump card, others could easily kill Wei Qiyan without having to do it himself. Chapter 704. High up in the sky, Lin Yuanliang's body glowed with spiritual light. His blood rose and the origin energy of the heavens and earth surged. A golden armored shadow of the mad god walked out from behind him. He punched out and the shadow of the mad god trembled strangely. The surrounding void space was distorted and the frightening fist strength was directed towards the Thousand Illusion Swordmaster. The Thousand Illusion Swordmaster immediately took out the inherited sword of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect, the Thousand Illusion Sword. In terms of grade, this sword was a level 8 earth weapon. A level 8 spiritual weapon was called an earth weapon. Unlike a level 7 treasure weapon which only had a certain level of spirituality, a level 8 earth weapon had already formed a weapon spirit. The weapon spirit was connected to the sword wielder and could be more compatible with the heavens and earth. It could greatly enhance the unity of heaven and man and divine origin stage cultivators. However, the rarity of a level 8 earth weapon was comparable to that of a divine origin stage cultivator. From a certain perspective, there were even fewer level 8 earth weapons than divine origin stage cultivators. The Thousand Illusion Swordmaster's sword could split mountains and rivers. The magnificent sword shadow was about to split the sky into two and also shattered Lin Yuanliang's fist strength. However, the Thousand Illusion Swordmaster's heart trembled. He did not know why, but he suddenly felt a strong sense of danger. He was in the divine origin stage and had been through many battles. He naturally had a sense of danger. At this moment, a thunderous roar could be heard from the 9 heavens. Dark clouds gathered and thunder rumbled. The origin energy of the heavens and earth trembled. The heavenly thunder of divine punishment, vanquish demons and slay Buddhas. A sloppy figure bathed in the heavenly thunder of divine lightning appeared. He looked like a thunder god descending. He was the Imperial Hall of Consecration Master who had been hiding for a long time, the old man. Those from the Thousand Illusion Sword sect who did not know what was going on were shocked. There was another divine origin stage cultivator. The Thousand Illusion Swordmaster and Wei Qiyan revealed a look of despair. Temporarily blocking Lin Yuanliang was already the Thousand Illusion Swordmaster's limit. How could he block another divine origin stage cultivator? As the heavenly thunder descended, the Thousand Illusion Swordmaster's white hair swayed without wind. He condensed his sword fingers and an illusion formation was formed. The illusion formation ignored the thunderbolts and enveloped the old man. The old man tilted his head and said, "Old thing, your illusion technique is not bad, but I'm also a spirit caster. This little bit of illusion technique can't do anything to me." Then he snapped his fingers lightly, and a layer of light purple lightning sprinkled down, protecting himself. At the same time, the destructive holy thunder struck. The Thousand Illusion Swordmaster's magic treasure sword shook and 3 sword projections appeared in the sky. As the sword shadows trembled, they ignored the sword chi and blocked most of the divine thunder. But at this moment Lin Yuanliang also made his move. He blasted out another punch. What was different was that this punch actually carried the aura of a powerful army, and it transformed into numerous brave and ferocious knights that charged forward. Ping ping ping. Under the combination of the holy thunder and the fist, the 3 sword shadows were in imminent danger. The Thousand Illusion Swordmaster's face also turned red. He had also reached his limit. On the other side, Wei Qiyan, who was already on the verge of death, suddenly opened his mouth and said something. But no one else heard his voice. Only the Thousand Illusion Swordmaster lowered his head and looked at him. His eyes were filled with reluctance and hope. Seeing that his 3 sword shadows were about to collapse, the Thousand Illusion Swordmaster seemed to have made a very difficult decision. Then he slapped his forehead and a mini person flew out from the top of his head. That was his immortal soul. The immortal soul of the Thousand Illusion Swordmaster swayed slightly and actually entered Wei Qian's body. Wei Qian's body started to float mysteriously, and the blood-red sword shadow that enveloped his body also shrunk back into his body. Waves of frightening aura spread out, and even Lin Yuanliang and the old man's faces were filled with seriousness. Leng Shiqi's supercilious eyes also flashed with a strange look. Through his supercilious eyes, he could clearly see that Wei Qian's spiritual aura had completely changed. It had become the Thousand Illusion Swordmaster. They actually used some kind of secret method to allow the Thousand Illusion Swordmaster to obtain Wei Qian's body. In Leng Shiqi's words, it was possession. Furthermore, it was Yuchi who wanted the thousand illusionary swordmaster to possess his body. His body would not feel any discomfort, and the techniques that they cultivated were the same. This meant that the thousand illusionary swordmaster had a young body. The biggest weakness of the thousand illusion swordmaster was his age. In fact, in theory, a xuanhuan cultivator could live for 300 to 400 years. But that was only in theory. After all, even among xuanhuan cultivators, it was difficult to avoid fighting. Once injured, it would more or less affect one's lifespan. The thousand illusion swordmaster's chi and blood had long deteriorated, and his strength was probably less than half of his peak. That was why it was so difficult for him to face Lin Yuanliang and the old man together. Otherwise, with his strength, it was not impossible for him to fight one against two. Now that he had obtained a young body, his strength had almost recovered to its peak state. Of course, he also had a very big disadvantage. That was, Wei Qian's cultivation was only at the unity of heaven and man level. In terms of spiritual power, it was far from the xuanhuan cultivator. However, for a battle between xuanhuan cultivators, spiritual power was not the most important thing. Mastery of the origin energy of heaven and earth was the most important. Wei Qian, or rather, the thousand illusion swordmaster, stood in the air holding the thousand illusion sword in his hand. His eyes flashed with a fierce light that looked down on the world. It's been too long. I haven't felt this powerful for too long. The thousand illusion swordmaster murmured, Lin Yuanliang, the old man, today, let me see what you two juniors are capable of. He held his sword across his chest and did not attack. However, everyone present felt the boundless sword essence. It was as if everything in the world had become a sword. Hiss. The old man said in surprise, this old thing has actually touched the edge of the laws of heaven and earth. If he is given a few more decades, he may really break through to that level. Lin Yuanliang's expression was also very serious. It seems that this mission is not as easy as I thought. What era is it now? You still dare to look down on juniors. Today I will show you that today's world no longer belongs to you. Lin Yuanliang's body flashed with a dazzling golden light. He flashed and flew to the forehead of the golden-armored mad god behind him. The two merged into one. The patterns on the mad god's body became clearer. Every strand of hair and pores grew out. It had completely turned into a living god. Crash. At the same time, the old man waved his hand and a purple lightning flashed across the void. The faint roar of a giant beast came from the 9 heavens thunder clouds. A terrifyingly huge thunder beast poked out of the thunder clouds. It opened its mouth and a thunder-like pillar that was hundreds of feet thick gushed out. The thousand illusion swordmaster's expression did not change. Let me show you the true power of the thousand illusion sword codex. Chapter 705. The thousand illusion sword elder's thousand illusion Dao sword suddenly disappeared. At the same time, there were thousands of Dao sword shadows suspended in mid-air. It looked like a sword formation. He formed a seal with his hands and a dreamy bubble wrapped around the sword shadows and connected them together. After the formation was formed, countless sword hums resounded for hundreds of miles. Anyone who heard the sword hums felt their vision turn black as countless illusions entered their minds. Only the disciples of the thousand illusion sword elder were not affected too much. Some of the spirit casters on Leng Shiqi's side hurriedly set up an isolation array to prevent too many casualties. Within the sword formation, countless sword threads intertwined and shot out. Those sword silks were split into two and one of them shot into the sky. Those seemingly weak sword silks easily broke through the layers of lightning, and in the blink of an eye, they pierced through the body of the lightning beast, creating bloody holes. The other half of the sword silks shot towards Lin Yuanliang. Lin Yuanliang used the mad god's body to press down 3 fist seals. The first seal shattered mountains and rivers, the second seal shattered mountains and tsunamis, and the third seal shattered the heavens and earth. The entire mountain range was constantly shaking, and the spirit cultivators who were still fighting had already retreated far away. Leng Shiqi also retreated. The power of the 3 sky origin stage experts fighting in the sky was too terrifying. If he got any closer, he would be implicated and die without a burial ground. However, Leng Shiqi also watched their battle without blinking. After all, there were very few opportunities to see a life and death battle between sky origin stage experts. As long as he could see a little bit of the trick, he would benefit a lot. Other than that, he was also looking for an opportunity to see if he had the chance to interfere. Facing Lin Yuanliang's fist seal that shook the void, the thousand illusion sword elder's seal changed. Those sword silks instantly condensed into a huge sword. One sword to break 3 seals. At this time the old man's lightning beast was strangely shrinking. The smaller it became, the denser the lightning on its body became. In the end, the huge beast that was supporting the sky condensed into a spear blade that flickered with endless lightning. The old man swung his spear downwards, and the blinding lightning was so bright that no one dared to look at it directly. In an instant, a large patch of sword silk was sliced apart, and the remaining power was directed at the Thousand Illusions Swordmaster. You do have some skills. The Thousand Illusions Swordmaster's expression was still very calm, as if he was guiding a junior. The sword will around him shot up into the sky, and all the sword shadows in the sword matrix flowed out like dragons soaring into the sky. This part of the sky shattered inch by inch, looking like a broken spider web. Lin Yuanliang and the old man were shocked. They did not expect the Thousand Illusions Sword Elder to be so powerful. There were very few people in the Heavenly Yuan stage who could kill him. The Thousand Illusions Sword Master swept his gaze across Leng Shiqi, following which tens of sword silks shot towards Leng Shiqi. He also knew that today's disaster was all caused by Leng Shiqi, and this boy must die. However, Leng Shiqi did something that no one expected. He did not dodge, and instead he jumped up and rushed forward. Yan Ming and Deng Xinlei immediately shouted, "Sir, what are you doing?" "Be careful." The old man also shouted. He did not want the new member of the elite hall to die like this. The others did not understand why Leng Shiqi did this. How could he, a person in the gang spirit realm, take on a battle between Heavenly Yuan stage masters? If he did not escape at this time, he might have a chance to survive under the protection of so many masters. Not only did he not escape, but he also rushed forward. This action was undoubtedly seeking death. The disciples of the Thousand Illusions Sword sect sneered. Today's disaster was caused by Leng Shiqi, and they could not wait for Leng Shiqi to be smashed into pieces. Of course, Leng Shiqi would not court death. He observed the battle between the three Heavenly Yuan stage masters and could see that the Thousand Illusions Sword Master had the upper hand in the situation of 1 against 2. He was not too worried about the old man and Lin Yuanliang. The two of them had not shown their trump cards yet, but the Thousand Illusions Sword Master had. However, if they continued to fight like this, even if they won in the end, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. In particular, if the Thousand Illusions Sword Master was really forced into a desperate situation, he might go crazy and kill Leng Shiqi and the other masters in the gang spirit realm and oneness of heaven and men stage to be his scapegoat. Originally, he was still looking for an opportunity to attack. Now that the Thousand Illusions Sword Master attacked first, it naturally gave him a chance. It was a chance to end this battle as quickly as possible. The Thousand Illusions Sword Master also showed a trace of surprise when he saw Leng Shiqi rushing over. However, he did not feel disdain. Instead, he felt puzzled and surprised. In his opinion, the 4 great chiefs were not idiots who would court death. This person must have his own guard of honor. Immediately, the Thousand Illusions Sword Master frowned. This was because Leng Shiqi was not penetrated by the sword silk. Instead, he passed through it directly. Unless one was a master in the Heavenly Yuan stage, no one could pass through the sword formation and sword silk so easily. How could Leng Shiqi, who was only in the gang spirit realm, do it? In reality, no one noticed that Leng Shiqi was holding a sword in his hand. To be more precise, it was a faint sword shadow. As a sword cultivator, the Thousand Illusions Sword Master immediately felt that something was wrong. He stared at the faint sword shadow and frowned. As a swordsman, he felt an indescribable power from the sword shadow. It was a power that could kill him. The 4 wings on Leng Shiqi's back flapped and he turned into a 5-colored ray of light and rushed towards the Thousand Illusions Sword Master. In the eyes of others, he was simply courting death. However, the strange thing was that the powerful sword formation that defeated the 2 Heavenly Yuan stage cultivators suddenly twisted and disappeared. Lin Yuanliang and the old man were shocked. They knew how powerful the sword formation was. How could it be destroyed in an instant by a gang spirit realm cultivator? What made them even more incredulous was that Leng Shiqi was wielding a sword-shaped shadow as he stabbed towards the Thousand Illusions Sword Master. However, the Thousand Illusions Sword Master did not react at all, regardless of whether he was forming hand seals or waving his Taoist sword. From afar, the Thousand Illusions Sword Master was like an actor on a stage. It was a little comical. The Thousand Illusions Sword Master was also stunned. At this moment, he could not even mobilize his own spiritual energy, let alone the chi of heaven and earth. Soon after, his body, which was floating in the air, fell to the ground uncontrollably. Leng Shiqi's sword was already in front of him. The Thousand Illusions Sword Master had lived for hundreds of years. What had he not seen before? However, at this moment he started to panic. In his panic, he could only use the Thousand Illusions sword to block in front of him. He wanted to use the power of the level 8 earth weapon to stop Leng Shiqi. However, with a clang, the Thousand Illusion Dao sword in his hand was instantly knocked away, and the sword-shaped phantom pierced through his heart. The Thousand Illusion Swordmaster looked at the hole in his chest in a daze. He could not believe that he would die so mysteriously. He could not believe that he would die in the hands of a gang spirit realm cultivator. Of course he was more desperate. Once he died, the Thousand Illusion Sword sect would be destroyed. The Thousand Illusion Swordmaster's body fell from 1,000 feet high. Without the support of any spiritual energy, his body was smashed into meat paste. The Thousand Illusion Swordmaster, who had protected the Thousand Illusion Sword sect for hundreds of years, had fallen. On the battlefield, which was filled with tens of thousands of people, not a single sound could be heard. Everyone was staring at Leng Shiqi, including Lin Yuanliang, the old man, and the Heavenly Yuan stage practitioner. Leng Shiqi stood in the air. He used the passive skill Hell's Curse to absorb the remnant soul of the Thousand Illusion Swordmaster. The soul power of a Tianyuan stage cultivator instantly restored his spiritual energy and broke through the barrier to level 8 of the gang spirit realm. At the same time, the souls of the Thousand Illusion Swordmaster and Wei Qian were also kept in the mansion of the dead. Leng Shiqi was also looking forward to seeing what was special about the souls of Tianyuan stage cultivators. The reason why he dared to mess things up and killed the Thousand Illusion Swordmaster so easily was because of one thing. Divine Sword, Bright. Chapter 706. The Divine Sword Clear Light could cut off all the spiritual energy in the world. In front of this sword, anyone was no different from an ordinary person. This included the Sky Origin stage experts. It was a pity that the Divine Sword Clear Radiant that Leng Shiqi had obtained was a one-time consumable item. Otherwise he would have felt invincible. However, after using the Divine Sword Clear Radiant once, he had an indescribable strange feeling in his heart. He wanted to immediately go into seclusion to comprehend it, so he immediately shouted, "Leave no one alive." Only then did everyone finally react. They suppressed the shock in their hearts and charged towards the disciples of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect. The remaining disciples of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect had no fighting spirit and were in a mess. Under the encirclement of many experts, they suffered heavy casualties. This was not to say that the disciples of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect were too useless. It was just that after Wei Qian and the Thousand Illusion Sword Elder, their two strongest backers fell, they could no longer see any hope. Not to mention the many experts of the Dark Thunder Guards, there were two Sky Origin stage experts, Lin Yuanliang and the Old Man in the Sky. There was also Leng Shiqi, who could be said to be abnormal. All the disciples of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect had lost any fighting spirit. The old man's eyes moved and a shocking thunder fell from the 9 heavens. In the blink of an eye, the few remaining experts of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect who were at the Unity of Heaven and Man stage were killed. Then he and Lin Yuanliang did not make any more moves. With their identity and status, killing someone at the Unity of Heaven and Man stage was already lowering their status. If they were asked to go down and kill those disciples at the Spirit Astral Realm and Spirit Aperture Realm, it would be embarrassing. However, there was indeed no need for them to make a move. Even Leng Shiqi did not make a move, because the situation had been decided. He spread out his colorful wings and hovered in the sky above the battlefield. It seemed like he was preventing any fish from escaping, but in fact he was constantly absorbing a large amount of soul power. There were tens of thousands of disciples of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect. Among them, there were many spirit cultivators at the 4 realms of heaven and man. Just the remnant soul power alone increased Leng Shiqi's spiritual power and physical strength by a large amount. At the same time, a large number of souls were absorbed into the underworld. In just an hour, the Thousand Illusory Sword sect, one of the top sects in the Ba Huang army, had been reduced to a pile of crimson ruins. Holding a bracelet and a ring, Yanming walked to Leng Shiqi. "Sir, this is the storage space of the Thousand Illusion Sword Sect Sect Master Wei Qian and Grand Elder Thousand Illusion Sword Venerable. Is this a storage ring?" Leng Shiqi picked up the light-colored ring. This storage ring was the rarest and most precious of all the storage rings. The space inside a storage ring was very large, enough to match 10 storage bracelets. Moreover, it was more flexible and it was usually engraved with formations. It was a priceless treasure. Anyway, this was the first storage ring that Leng Shiqi had seen. He took the bracelet and ring without hesitation. Then he shouted, "All the resources of the Thousand Illusionary Sword sect will be divided equally." As soon as these words were spoken, the crowd burst into cheers. These people were all from the Dark Thunder Guards, the Discipline Commission, and the military. However, these 3 places were extremely strict. It was not easy to profit from them. The Thousand Illusionary Sword sect was a top sect that had stood tall for hundreds of years. The resources it had accumulated were definitely huge. Even if everyone divided them equally, they would still be able to get a lot of good things. Generally speaking, most of the resources seized after destroying a force would fall into the hands of the top few people. The rest would be divided among the subordinates and there would not be much left. Therefore, Leng Shiqi's generosity made everyone have a good impression of him. In addition, in the process of attacking the Thousand Illusion Sword sect, he first used a trick to gather all the disciples and secretly destroyed the Thousand Illusions' 9-pavilion sword formation. In the end, he seriously injured the sect master Wei Qian and killed the Thousand Illusion Sword Venerable by himself. Regardless of whether it was his strength or his bearing, they were all admirable. Unknowingly, Leng Shiqi's prestige among these people had reached a peak. Wu Yi was even more envious in his heart. In fact, to Leng Shiqi what he lacked the most was not those resources. He only needed to obtain the things of Wei Qian and the Thousand Illusionary Sword Venerable. In particular, the complete Thousand Illusionary Sword Codex inside made him extremely envious. Seeing that Yan Ming had offered up the treasure, Deng Xinlei walked over with a long sword in his hand. One could see that the sword was still trembling violently in his hand. If it were not for Deng Xinlei forcefully suppressing it, the spiritual sword would have probably broken free. A sword that could be suppressed by an expert of the unity of heaven and man stage with all his strength was the most precious treasure of the Thousand Illusionary Sword sect, the rank 8 earth weapon, the Thousand Illusion Sword. Sir, a treasured sword is a gift to a hero. I believe that you are the true owner of this sword. Deng Xinlei had been completely subdued by Leng Shiqi. From his methods to his strength, he was far inferior to him, so he naturally began to fawn over him. Leng Shiqi raised his eyebrows, and his eyes could not help but reveal a few wisps of light. He already had a lot of high-grade spiritual weapons on him, especially in Li Jueqing's storage bracelet where he found several rank 7 precious weapons, but he had never owned a rank 8 earth weapon. Not to mention the Gang Spirit Realm and the Unity of Heaven and Man stage, even the Tianyuan stage experts did not have a rank 8 earth weapon. Leng Shiqi reached out to hold the Thousand Illusionary Sword, and the sword immediately buzzed, causing his hand to go numb. Humph! Leng Shiqi snorted softly, and his palm instantly turned into the color of diamond. Majestic mental strength surged, and at the same time, he operated the Thousand Illusionary Sword Codex in his body, finally making the Thousand Illusionary Sword Codex settle down. With this Thousand Illusionary Sword, it was equivalent to letting his strength soar out of thin air. Now, even if it was an expert at the middle stage of the Unity of Heaven and Man stage, he was confident that he could kill him within a few moves. As for the late stage of the Unity of Heaven and Man stage, he might be able to hold on for a while. This was not because Leng Shiqi was arrogant, but because he had accidentally comprehended the 4 spirits formation after mastering the 16 heaven changes true solution, and had a rank 8 earth weapon in his hand. Ordinary experts at the middle stage of the Unity of Heaven and Man stage were no match for him. At this time Lin Yuanliang and the old man, 2 experts of the Tianyuan stage, came over with strange expressions. They stood on both sides of Leng Shiqi and did not speak. They just stared at Leng Shiqi. Leng Shiqi was numbed by their stares. He put away the Thousand Illusionary Sword, cupped his fists and said, "Seniors, what are you doing?" Lin Yuanliang and the old man looked at each other and shouted to the East Town Thunderflame Army, "Listen up, gather the resources and return to Donglin County in formation." "Yes, sir." Then he said to Leng Shiqi, "There are some things that are inconvenient to say. Anyway, the Thousand Illusionary Sword sect has been destroyed. Let them deal with the follow-up matters themselves. Come with us." Leng Shiqi more or less guessed their intention. It was nothing more than the way he killed the Thousand Illusionary Sword Master was too strange. Fortunately, he had already thought of an excuse to deal with it. So the 3 of them immediately left and soon came to the dense forest dozens of miles away. Chapter 707. After Leng Shiqi, Lin Yuanliang and the old man landed on the ground, the old man waved his hand and set up a thunder formation. Then he asked seriously, "How did you kill the Thousand Illusion Sword Master?" Lin Yuanliang's eyes were also shining. When Leng Shiqi used the 4 spirits formation, he had activated the power of the laws of heaven and earth. This was enough to shock them. But when Leng Shiqi killed the Thousand Illusion Sword Master, even they who were in the Tianyuan stage could not figure out what had happened. Leng Shiqi was very clear that the biggest reason was the divine sword Xiaoming. The divine sword Xiaoming definitely contained the power of the laws of heaven and earth. But what was special was that it did not belong to this world. In Leng Shiqi's original understanding, he could only understand the power of the laws of this world in this world. But the divine sword Xiaoming also broke his idea. At the same time, it also pointed out a wider cultivation path for him. Because he had the system, he had many opportunities to come into contact with the power of the laws of other worlds. Facing the old man's question, Leng Shiqi answered, "Actually, I don't know. I got a sword by chance. To be more precise, it was a sword shadow." Sword shadow? The old man did not understand. Yes, it was a sword without a physical body. In front of this sword, everyone is just an ordinary person. That's why I was able to kill the 1,000 illusion swordmaster. Leng Shiqi said with a mixture of truth and falsehood. The old man and Lin Yuanliang were silent. They saw the 1,000 illusion swordmaster being killed by Leng Shiqi with their own eyes. Even a Tianyuan stage cultivator could be turned into an ordinary person. What kind of power was this? Even the power of the laws of heaven and earth might not be able to do this. Now Leng Shiqi was like a fog in their eyes. They could not see through him. Not to mention the sword shadow, just the fact that he could activate the power of the laws of heaven and earth in the gang spirit realm made them feel inferior. The power of the laws of heaven and earth was what all Tianyuan stage cultivators yearned for. Unfortunately, the energy of the laws was illusory and intangible. It couldn't be seen or touched, and it couldn't be taught by word of mouth. One could only rely on oneself to comprehend it. Therefore, most of the Sky Origin stage cultivators had never even touched the surface of the natural laws. All they could do was try their best to control as much natural powers as possible. The origin energy of heaven and earth was indeed powerful, but in this world, one could only be considered as a relatively powerful contestant. Only those who had grasped the power of the laws of heaven and earth could be called the rule maker. This was just like Leng Shiqi's Dark Thunder Guard. Only the 4 great managers were the real higher-ups and could change the rules of the Dark Thunder Guard. Below them, even the deputy general manager was only a person carrying out a mission. Leng Shiqi's cultivation was still in the gang spirit realm, not even in the oneness of heaven and men realm, but he had crossed 2 big realms and got in touch with the law of heaven and earth, which made the old man and Lin Yuanliang feel that their years of cultivation were in vain. However, they didn't have any bad intentions. First of all, Leng Shiqi was one of the 4 chiefs of the Dark Thunder Guards. Moreover, the power of the laws was yours once you comprehended it. No one could take it away from you even if they wanted to. The old man said in an envious tone, "Your luck and perception can be said to be heaven-defying. In some aspects you have already surpassed us." Lin Yuanliang also said, "Your cultivation is actually not so important. The oneness of heaven and men realm requires you to communicate with the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, but you have already left this level. As long as your spiritual energy reaches a certain level, it will be easy for you to break through the oneness of heaven and men realm. Even the Sky Origin stage won't be much of an obstacle for you." In fact, Leng Shiqi himself didn't know that his cultivation had been so smooth. He said politely, "I'm just lucky." "Maybe you are lucky, but in my opinion you seem to have a lot of luck." The old man shook his head a few times as if what he said was reasonable. Lin Yuanliang, on the other hand, nodded seriously. Luck. Leng Shiqi began to ponder. He had seen a lot of luck. In the beginning, he and Nine Leaf worked together to get the Wind Thunder God's luck stone from the Wind Thunder Tower in the West Barren State. It was said that there was a sliver of luck in it, but he didn't know if he absorbed it. Later, he entered the Dragon Fountain to cultivate for 10 days. There was definitely luck in there. Also, when he was in the Tuoba country, he absorbed some golden power from Tuoba forefather. Perhaps it had something to do with luck. Leng Shiqi also went to learn about luck. Luck was actually a bit similar to luck. As long as you had luck, you would encounter good things wherever you went. The difference was that when you had a lot of luck, you would soar into the sky. Whether it was conquering the world or pursuing the heavenly path, it would be smooth sailing. Leng Shiqi thought about what had happened to him recently and felt that the old man was right. Especially in the Void Scar Sky, his inky jade sword was the key to the Yunlu Demon Palace. He also got the Heavenly Thunderfire bead there. From then on, he set up a plan to rob the Heavenly Thunderfire bead, which attracted Lei Qingjuan's attention. In the end, he was conferred the title of one of the 4 general managers. Not only that, he also killed all the people who wanted to kill him in the Yunlu Demon Palace. Although Leng Shiqi's strategy and strength were the key to all this, he couldn't do anything about it. Therefore, he also felt that he might have some luck. As for the Heavenly Thunderfire bead that he copied, it did have a lot of formations. He couldn't see through it at all, so he could only keep it as a collection. Lin Yuanliang suddenly took out a small translucent bottle and threw it over. "This is the 1,000-year-old black snake saliva. Each drop contains a lot of pure spiritual power, enough for you to use until the peak of Gang Spirit Realm." Leng Shiqi subconsciously wanted to refuse. As the saying went, one should not accept a reward without pains. He was not familiar with Lin Yuanliang and had no relationship with him, so he couldn't take it. Lin Yuanliang said directly, "You have endless potential. If you don't die halfway, you will be above me in the future. Just take it as a good karma." "General Lin, you are so straightforward. I will take it." Lin Yuanliang's straightforward words made Leng Shiqi feel at ease and accept the 1,000-year-old black snake saliva. He really wanted it. The old man rolled his eyes. "General Lin, you are so rich. I can only do you a favor. When we return to the imperial capital, I will take you to see the masters of the Imperial Hall of Worship." It was not a real thing, but it was far more valuable than the 1,000-year-old black snake saliva. The masters of the Imperial Hall of Worship were all masters of Tianyuan realm. Getting to know a few of them, even if it was just a little bit of affinity, would be a great benefit. Especially for people like Leng Shiqi who mingled in the power of the imperial capital. If he had some connection with those masters, he would be feared by many. He also knew that the reason why the two masters in front of him gave him face was that they thought highly of his potential and future. He immediately cupped his hands and said, "Seniors, if you need me in the future, just let me know." Chapter 708. After exchanging some pleasantries, the three of them parted ways. Lin Yuanliang led the Eastern Thunder Flame Army back to Donglin County, while the old man returned to the imperial capital alone. When the two of them were far away, a charming voice sounded, "You still dare to come out with two Sky Origin Realm cultivators? Aren't you afraid that they will search your soul?" The one who spoke was Nine Leaf. She walked out of the void, and there was a faint ancient aura around her. What was different from before was that her hair had turned pure black, and there was no sign of a demon on her body. Apart from a pair of demonic purple eyes, she was clearly a beauty who could bring disaster to a country. She was right. This was what Leng Shiqi was worried about at first. However, it was because of Nine Leaf that he had the confidence to come here alone with two Sky Origin Realm cultivators. Although Nine Leaf's cultivation had not fully recovered, she had also obtained the inheritance of the underworld after being conferred the title of Ghost Emperor Yao Yi of the Northern Wastelands. Now she had completely mastered the inheritance technique. Although Leng Shiqi had not seen her fight, he was sure that her strength was no less than Sky Origin Realm cultivators. She had not recovered to the 7th rank, but her strength was stronger than when she was at her peak. This was the strength of the underworld's inheritance. Thinking of the underworld, Leng Shiqi felt that it was time to upgrade it. Of course, now was not the time. He immediately thought of a plan and said, "With Senior Nine Leaf here, I naturally have nothing to worry about. Your mouth is getting sweeter and sweeter. But then again, the underworld's inheritance is indeed powerful, even more powerful than my memory inheritance. I don't know where you got this arcane realm." Nine Leaf continued, "Speaking of which, it's strange. Why is it that when I'm not by your side, you always have some strange things? For example, the sword you used to kill 1,000 Illusion Sword Elder. Where did it come from? Don't talk about chance and coincidence. There are too many coincidences around you." Nine Leaf's question hit the nail on the head. This was also the reason why Leng Shiqi did not want to spend too much time with Nine Leaf. He had too many unknown things in the system that could not be explained at all. He could only stubbornly say, "It is indeed due to chance. Otherwise, I wouldn't have the ability to create this arcane realm." Nine Leaf curled his lips. "It's fine if you don't want to say it. In any case, we have a blood contract. As long as you don't harm me, it's fine. Junior wouldn't dare." "Alright, you heard what that old man said just now. When I return to the Imperial City, I'll probably meet some experts from the Imperial family's Hall of Worship. Senior, if you keep hiding on me, I'm afraid it'll be inconvenient." "Oh, so you were waiting for me here." Nine Leaf instantly saw through Leng Shiqi's intentions, but she still said, "Anyway, I'm tired of staying in the capital, so I'm planning to go out for a walk. I plan to make a trip to the Northern Wei Empire, and I won't be back for a long time." Northern Wei Dynasty. When Leng Shiqi heard these words, he guessed what Nine Leaf was going to do. Back in the demonic Miasma Mountain range, it was the people from the Imperial Beast Abode and the Blood Beast sect who came to capture her. In order to survive, she self-detonated her great demon body, which had just passed the tribulation, and her cultivation was destroyed. Now that Nine Leaf had obtained the legacy of Underworld, her strength was no weaker than before. Furthermore, she still had a lot of room for improvement. Once she completely recovered to a rank 7 great demon, her strength would skyrocket, so it was time for her to take revenge. The Imperial Beast Abode and the Blood Beast sect were both in the Northern Wei Empire. Leng Shiqi sighed inwardly. Nine Leaf wasn't going to relax as if she was just going for a stroll. At the same time, he was a little worried. The Imperial Beast Abode and the Blood Beast sect were both top sects, and they weren't like the Thousand Illusionary Sword sect, which had declined for decades. They were still at their peak. The Imperial Beast Abode had a total of 3 Beast Kings, and each of them was in the Sky Origin realm. In addition to the spirit beasts they raised, they were comparable to 5 or 6 Sky Origin realm cultivators. The Blood Beast sect's strength was similar to the Imperial Beast Abode's. How could it be easy to take revenge on these two top sects? Even if Nine Leaf had the strength of the Sky Origin realm, it was very likely that she would die. Lung Shichi secretly opened the system store and exchanged a large amount of experience pills and advancement pills. Senior Nine Leaf, you can take these things. Looking at these pills, Nine Leaf seemed to be stunned for a moment, and her heart inexplicably throbbed. She also knew that Lung Shichi had already guessed what she was going to do. For a long time she wouldn't be able to help Lung Shichi. It could be said that these most precious pills were given to her by Lung Shichi for free. The two of them had always existed in the form of a transaction. As a great demon, Nine Leaf naturally had her own pride. Although Lung Shichi's potential and strength were quickly catching up to Nine Leaf, she still looked at Lung Shichi as a junior. In her impression, Lung Shichi was also a person who wouldn't do anything without benefits. At this moment she couldn't help but feel suspicious. Nine Leaf frowned, then opened her mouth and spat out a purple light. I won't take these things for free. This wisp of demon energy contains 10% of my power, which is enough to save your life. If you die, I will lose some of my soul power, she added. After speaking, she turned into a purple light and disappeared into the horizon. Sigh. Lung Shichi sighed faintly. He wasn't worried about anything else. With Nine Leaf's personality, she wouldn't openly barge into the Imperial Beast Abode or the Blood Beast sect. He sighed, but in reality he was sighing for the two top sections. In the near future they would probably have a headache. However, this wasn't something that Lung Shichi needed to worry about. He was prepared to worry about his own matters first. After destroying the Thousand Illusion Sword sect, there were still many things that he needed to deal with. When he returned to the Thousand Illusion Sword sect, he first ordered everyone to take the resources back to their homes, but he had to stay alone for a while. Not long after, he came to a deep pool in the back of the mountain. A person appeared inside. It was Oziu, who had secretly destroyed the Thousand Illusion 9 Pavilion Sword formation. As soon as he came out, he directly asked, "Brother Lu, you hid it from me." Oziu was naturally referring to the fact that Lung Shichi had hidden his identity as one of the 4 chiefs from him, as well as the fact that he had joined forces with the Discipline Commission, the East Guarding Thunder Flame Army, and the Imperial Hall of Worship to destroy the Thousand Illusion Sword sect. Lung Shichi smiled apologetically. "Brother Ziyu, don't blame me. If I had said that from the beginning, you probably wouldn't have believed me at all. On the contrary, you would have thought that I was talking nonsense. Then there would be no possibility of cooperation." He originally thought that Oziu would be more or less angry, but unexpectedly Oziu said indifferently, "It doesn't matter. The Thousand Illusion Sword sect has been destroyed. I didn't kill a single person, so it can be considered as repaying their kindness." The destruction of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect was equivalent to Oziu taking revenge. "Then what do you plan to do after this, Brother Ziyu?" Lung Shichi asked. Oziu fell silent. He had been cultivating wholeheartedly for several years just to take revenge. Now that the Thousand Illusion Sword sect, a top sect, had been destroyed, he suddenly lost his goal and didn't know what to do. "I don't know either. Let's just take a walk first." He sighed slightly. Lung Shichi's expression changed. "Brother Ziyu, why don't you make a trip to the Western Desolate Prefecture? There are some of my subordinates there that I need Brother Ziyu's help to take care of. Moreover, from Pinghui Prefecture to the Western Desolate Prefecture, you can almost cross the Thunder Flame Dynasty. Of course, I won't let Brother Ziyu work for nothing. Here is the complete rank 8 cultivation technique, the Thousand Illusion Sword scripture, and the first 3 levels of the 5 God Flowing Light technique." As he spoke, he took out 2 jade slips. Oziu pondered for a moment and also took out a jade slip. "These are the first 3 levels of the Thousand Revolutions Illusory World technique." Lung Shichi smiled lightly. It was done. Chapter 709. After Oziu left, Lung Shichi entered the Mansion of the Dead with a thought. The first thing he did after entering was to find 7 souls. These were the experts of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect, including the Thousand Illusion Sword Elder and Wei Qian. Lung Shichi looked at the soul of the Thousand Illusion Sword Elder, which was obviously more solid than the others, and his expression was not so numb. He summoned the soul of the Thousand Illusion Sword Elder and prepared to turn him into a ghost slave. He was also very curious about what the soul of a Xuanhuan realm expert would look like after being turned into a ghost slave, and how strong would it be. However, Leng Shiqi suddenly stopped. He thought that after the Mansion of the Dead was upgraded, the power of the ghost slave would also increase. Now that he had met the requirements to upgrade the Mansion of the Dead, he might as well wait for the upgrade to become a ghost slave. He came to the gate of the Fengdu city and saw the requirements to upgrade the Mansion of the Dead, the current level of the Mansion of the Dead, level 3. The requirements to upgrade the Mansion of the Dead. 1. Recruit 3 members of the Mansion of the Dead, March 3rd. 2. Collect 2 high-level souls, February 2nd. 3. 40,000 system coins. Leng Shiqi did not hesitate to exchange 40,000 system coins and chose to upgrade the Mansion of the Dead. Then he was pushed out of the Mansion of the Dead by a repulsive force. This time he was prepared in advance and was already waiting for the system prompt. The upgrade of the Mansion of the Dead will take 10 natural days. During the upgrade, the mansion system will not be available. 10 days. Leng Shiqi murmured. These 10 days would be his most uncertain time. Fortunately, the battle was over. He only needed to deal with some follow-up matters and then return to the imperial capital. There should be no more accidents. Then, he hid himself in the vicinity and began to consolidate his cultivation. After he absorbed the remnant souls of the 1,000 illusion sword elder and many experts, his cultivation also broke through to the 8th level of the Spirit Gang realm. Although he had a strong foundation, he had just broken through to the 7th level of the Spirit Gang realm not long ago. The gap in cultivation was too big and he needed to consolidate it well. Leng Shiqi cultivated steadily for 3 days. He calculated that the people of the Dark Thunder Guards should have returned to Pinghui City. Then he instantly teleported to Pinghui City in a tricolored divine light. When he walked into the Dark Thunder Manor, everyone saluted him respectfully. Now, his name had been deeply imprinted in everyone's hearts. This name represented an unimaginable skill and strength. Wu Yanming and Deng Xinlei came out with faces full of joy. At the same time, they knelt on the ground and shouted, "Greetings, my lord." The 3 of them were powerful cultivators in the middle stage of the unity of heaven and man realm, but when they fought with Yu Qiyan, they were beaten by Yu Qiyan to the point that they could not fight back. However, Mr. Liu, who was in Gang Spirit realm, was able to severely injure Wei Qian. If Wei Qian hadn't had a life-saving trump card, he would have been killed on the spot. Not to mention Leng Shiqi's shocking feat of killing the 1,000 illusion swordmaster. Now the 3 of them were completely in awe of Leng Shiqi. In these 3 days, the 1,000 illusionary sword sect, the Machine Pass City, the Bright Mirror Palace, and the 1,000 illusionary sword sect, had been annihilated in a thunderous manner. This had shaken the entire Falling Star continent. The replacement of the top sects had happened before, but this kind of thing might not happen for decades or even hundreds of years. After all the top sects had powerhouses in Tianyuan realm, but the number varied. However, it was too difficult to kill a powerhouse in Tianyuan realm. Even when facing a powerhouse like the 1,000 illusion swordmaster, the Thunderfire dynasty had sent 2 powerhouses in their peak state to besiege him. This could be seen from this. In addition, each top sect had been passed down for at least 100 years. They had collected a huge amount of resources, had a deep foundation, and had all kinds of trump cards. If one wanted to annihilate a sect, he must have the strength to completely crush it. Looking at the ranking of sects in the world, except for the most mysterious Yin and Yang temples, the current 3 dynasties, and the semi-hidden 4 saint spiritual realm, it was extremely difficult for other sects to annihilate another top sect. Only a colossus like the Thunderfire dynasty could annihilate 3 top sects at the same time. There were also dozens of top sects that suffered along with them. Now, on the Falling Star continent, from ordinary people to high officials and nobles, all admired the courage of the Thunderfire dynasty. They also admired Lei Qingjuan's iron fist. The relationship between the Empire and the Spirit Cultivator sects had always been the biggest headache for the 3 empires. Yet, Lei Qingjun had boldly and decisively annihilated dozens of peak and first-rate sections. This action had probably frightened all the Spirit Cultivator sects in the Thunderfire Empire. In fact, it was indeed so. If the Thunderfire dynasty had annihilated a top sect, the other sects might feel that the Thunderfire dynasty had gone overboard and might even secretly join hands to fight against the dynasty. However, Lei Qingjun did it all. This really scared all the sects out of their wits. They did not even have the slightest intention to resist. Instead, they all holed up, sealed their mountains and went into seclusion. The entire Thunderfire dynasty sects instantly became well-behaved. Among them, Leng Shiqi's name spread throughout the Falling Star continent. It was simply too absurd for a late-stage spirit astral realm cultivator to kill a sky origin realm cultivator. Many people did not believe it and thought that the Thunder Fire dynasty deliberately made him famous. However, his reputation had indeed reached an unprecedented level. Now, the names that were mentioned the most in the Falling Star continent were Lei Qingjun and Lu Xingji. Leng Shiqi also guessed some of the reactions of the outside world. He said indifferently, "Get up. Have the follow-up matters of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect been arranged properly?" Wu Yi immediately replied, "Sir, don't worry. There are no more disciples of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect in this world. Right now there are no more top sects in the Pinghui prefecture. This is great news for the Dark Thunder Guards and the Discipline Commission. As long as we take advantage of this period of time to rope in those who should be roped in and suppress those who should be suppressed, this subordinate dares to guarantee that there will not be any major problems for the next few decades." Very good. However, do you remember this seat once asked who is in charge of the Pinghui prefecture? Leng Shiqi asked this question for the third time. Wu Yi bowed and said, "Naturally it's Sir Lu." He knew very well that the strength and potential of the Leng Shiqi in front of him could be said to be abnormal. Even though Manager Hai's qualifications were very high, he was also very old. Whether or not Manager Hai would be part of the Dark Thunder Guards in the future was still uncertain. However, with Leng Shiqi's age, he could at least continue to be one of the four great managers for a few more decades. It was even possible for him to become the commander of the Dark Thunder Guards. If he had to choose between Manager Hai and Leng Shiqi, Wu Yi would definitely choose Leng Shiqi without hesitation. Leng Shiqi nodded and smiled. "All right then. You will follow me back to the imperial capital to take over the position of imperial eunuch. As for Pinghui prefecture, Yan Ming and Deng Xinlei will take care of it." Hearing this, Wu Yi, Yan Ming and Deng Xinlei all had different thoughts. Wu Yi understood very well that Leng Shiqi's actions were nothing more than to let his people completely control Pinghui prefecture. As for Wu Yi himself, entering the imperial capital to follow Leng Shiqi was also a good choice. The only thing that gave him a headache was that he didn't dare to meet Manager Hai. In addition, Yan Ming and Deng Xinlei were also very happy. They were imperial eunuch envoys themselves. Although their status was slightly higher than that of the patrol envoy, they were definitely inferior in terms of benefits. Now that they had temporarily taken over Pinghui prefecture, it was because of Leng Shiqi's trust in them that they could take advantage of this opportunity to gain some benefits. Therefore, the three of them were very satisfied. Leng Shiqi did not waste any time. After arranging everything, he brought Wu Yi back to the imperial capital. Chapter 710. When Leng Shiqi walked out of the interdomain transfer array in the imperial capital, he stopped in his tracks. Behind him, Wu Yi opened his mouth and almost cried out in surprise. Because at this moment several people were standing there to welcome them. They were the Dark Lightning Guard's four chiefs, Eunuch Gao, Steward Hai, Shintu Zhen, Grand Commander Heavenly Master He Yen, and an expert from the Imperial Hall of Worship, Old Man. These people were all great figures whose names shook a region. At this moment they had actually come together to welcome Leng Shiqi. Old Man's voice suddenly entered Leng Shiqi's ears. "How is it, brother? This is quite a lineup, isn't it?" Hearing this, Leng Shiqi almost guessed it in his heart. It seemed that the old man had added fuel to the fire behind his back to support him. Old Man should know that Leng Shiqi was the weakest of the four chiefs. This time he took advantage of Leng Shiqi's great achievements to welcome him. This was equivalent to the other three chiefs acknowledging Leng Shiqi's position. At the same time they knew that Old Man, a sky origin expert, was on Leng Shiqi's side. Leng Shiqi transmitted his voice, "Thank you, brother." "Ah, no need to be so polite." Leng Shiqi then walked to Heavenly Master He Yen and cupped his fist. "Greetings, Grand Commander." Heavenly Master He Yen also looked at Leng Shiqi. "You are giving me more and more surprises. I look forward to seeing how far you can go in the future." This time, the Dark Lightning Guard has contributed greatly to the Thunderflame dynasty's annihilation of many sections. The Dark Lightning Hall has already set up a banquet for you. "Thank you, Grand Commander." At the banquet, the Dark Lightning Guard was clearly much more enthusiastic towards Leng Shiqi. It was completely different from the banquet when he was promoted to Grand Commander. Now, most people had acknowledged Leng Shiqi's identity as one of the four great chiefs. He now had the authority to supervise 4 provinces and counties, and his name was known throughout the region. After the wedding banquet, Leng Shiqi politely rejected all the people who wanted to make friends with him and immediately locked himself in the secret cultivation room. He had accidentally used the 4 spirits formation diagram when he was fighting with Wei Lian. That was when he used the spirit techniques of the 16 heavens transformation mantra that represented the 4 elements of earth, water, wind, and fire. Leng Shiqi believed that even the Li family's ancestor, who created the 16 heavens transformation mantra, had not been able to do this. The 4 spirits array diagram seemed to contain a power that he couldn't understand, and he needed to figure it out. He also obtained the supreme technique of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect, the Thousand Illusion Sword scripture, which was very compatible with his Chaotic Blossom's bewildering eye. As long as he comprehended a part of it, he would be able to greatly increase the power of his Chaotic Blossom's bewildering eye. He had also exchanged for the Thousand Revolutions illusory world technique from Ozu. This was a technique that specialized in illusions, and it could also allow Leng Shiqi's mental strength to have more room to display. In addition, he had comprehended something after using the divine sword Clear Radiance. It just so happened that he could wait for the underworld to level up. It could be said that he had killed 2 birds with 1 stone. Therefore, when Leng Shiqi's reputation was at its peak, he chose to go into seclusion. In this way, not only did he not offend anyone, but the people of the Dark Thunder Guards admired him even more. A young man who was famous, powerful, had monstrous potential, and held a high position. To not be arrogant and impatient, and continue to cultivate in seclusion, this was the true pride of the heavens. Time passed very quickly and 7 days passed in the blink of an eye. Leng Shiqi opened his eyes on time. A system message appeared in front of him. Territory level up successful. Leng Shiqi hurriedly entered the underworld with a hopeful look on his face. As soon as Leng Shiqi entered underworld, he immediately felt something different. He hadn't even looked around in detail, but all of the places within underworld appeared in his mind, each and every one of them existing in his heart. It was as if he was the master of this world. Leng Shiqi finally felt a little gratified because this was the ability that the master of the underworld should have. After the upgrade, the underworld had a radius of 1,000 miles, and the mountains rose and fell one after another. The river of forgetfulness poured down like the water of the 9 heavens, and there was a huge blood moon in the sky that flickered, and there were tens of thousands of souls floating on the ground. It could be said that it had some resemblance to the 9 Netherhell. The spirit energy here was also much more abundant, but this kind of spirit energy was more suitable for people who cultivated demonic arts. If other spirit cultivators cultivated here, it would be half the result with twice the effort. What he cared about the most was not the changes in the environment. With a thought, he instantly arrived in front of the gate of Fengdu City. And the gate that had been closed for a long time finally opened. Walking into Fengdu City, Leng Shiqi suddenly felt that this was not a city, but another heaven in this subworld. Because he was in Fengdu City, the feeling it gave him was completely different. If it was said to be gloomy below, then there was a sense of solemnity here. He looked up, and the most eye-catching things in Fengdu City were the huge and dark palaces. These were the 10 kings of hell. Among them, the palaces of King Qingguang, King Ping, and King Luanzhuan all flickered with a faint light, and the others were incomparably dim. This meant that the 3 palaces already had their own masters, which were Yushu, Mingming, and Ozu. What surprised Leng Shiqi the most was that there were actually 6 whirlpools that almost covered the sky at the end of Fengdu City. That was the 6 paths of reincarnation. The 6 paths were divided into 3 good paths and 3 evil paths. The 3 good paths were the heavenly path, the human path, and the Azura path. The 3 evil paths were the hungry ghost path, the birth path, and the hell path. According to legend, after a person died, their soul would enter hell, and after a trial, their good and evil would enter different 6 paths of reincarnation. Then, since the 6 paths of reincarnation appeared in Leng Shiqi's underworld, did it mean that this place also had the ability to let people reincarnate? Leng Shiqi's eyes revealed a pondering expression. It was very simple to verify his thoughts. He turned around and went to the Palace of Lost Souls. There were already a large number of souls here, and after Fengdu City opened, they began to slowly walk into the city. Leng Shiqi followed all the way, and when the first soul that was about to be sent to the human path entered reincarnation, an extremely weak faint golden energy suddenly appeared and poured into Leng Shiqi's forehead. Strangely, he inexplicably knew that this was merit. As the saying goes, saving a life is better than building a 7-storied pagoda, and Leng Shiqi sending people to reincarnation was even more meritorious. He still didn't know what the merit was for, but there was no harm in it. Then Leng Shiqi opened the territory system to see if there were any changes. Sure enough, the number of ghost slaves he could have had already increased to 8. He might as well turn the 1,000 Illusion Swordmaster and the few Unity of Heaven realm experts of the 1,000 Illusion Sword sect into ghost slaves. What surprised him was that after the 1,000 Illusion Sword Elder turned into a ghost slave, he actually had the power of the union of heaven and man realm. Leng Shiqi thought about it and named him Sword Demon, and even gave him a 7th-level spiritual sword. This was his strongest combat power. In addition, he also had an additional ability, the Netherlamp Phantom. He could contact the members of the underworld at any time in the underworld. This was not a 1,000-mile transmission, but he could use his identity as the master of the underworld to summon the members of the underworld to the underworld. Naturally, it was equivalent to face-to-face communication. This way, no matter where they were, he could directly contact them. It was really too convenient. Leng Shiqi was quite satisfied with the changes brought about by the underworld's upgrade this time. He immediately looked at the requirements for the next upgrade and began to prepare. Chapter 7:11. Underworld Territory Current Level, Rank 4. Underworld Territory Upgrade Requirements. 1. Recruit one of the 10 Kings of Hell, 0/1. 2. Collect 10 high-level souls, 0/10. 3. 80,000 system coins. The first thing that Leng Shiqi expected was the system coins. As expected, it doubled again. Fortunately, Leng Shiqi was rich now, so 80,000 system coins was not a problem. The number of high-level souls that needed to be collected had reached 10. If it was the Leng Shiqi in the past, it would have been difficult, but now it was not a big deal. The key was that spirit cultivators in the unity of heaven and man realm were not very common. He could not go to a top sect to kill people. So these 10 high-level souls were quite troublesome. The most troublesome thing was the first condition. The mission this time was still to recruit members of Underworld, but it was no longer quantity but quality. Among the members that Leng Shiqi had recruited in the past, except for Princess Carol who had not entered Underworld and received a title, the others were at least at the level of the 10 Kings of Hell. The first condition seemed simple, but among the people that Leng Shiqi was familiar with, the ones with the best talent and the highest comprehension had already been pulled into Underworld. Delta Origi, Yushu, and Ming Ming had all killed their way to Bloodfog Island together. Oziu was the most outstanding genius disciple of the top sect, 1000 Illusionary Sword Sect. As for Tu Deng and Jiuli, there was no need to talk about them. However, other than these people, Leng Shiqi's list of candidates was only Di Chuan and Wu Diao. Although these two were the winners of the elite club, their talent was still lacking compared to Delta Origi and Leng Shiqi. Moreover, the two of them were quite old, so they might not be able to receive a title from the 10 Kings of Hell. Zhuge Puha was very likely, but unfortunately he was a descendant of the Star Clan. Leng Shiqi did not trust the Zhuge family and the Star Clan, so he would not easily accept Zhuge Puha. In this way, the scope of his recruitment had become very small. This matter could only be done slowly. It was likely that Underworld would not be able to upgrade in a short period of time. Since that was the case, Leng Shiqi wasn't in a hurry. He wanted to test the effects of the Netherlamp Phantom body first. Then he formed a seal with his hands and streams of Netherworld energy flowed out. At this moment, Delta Origi, who was in the headquarters of the Discipline Commission, suddenly had a change in expression. In her mind, an inexplicable thought of being summoned appeared. She was very familiar with that aura. It was Leng Shiqi. Delta Origi's eyes moved, then closed them again. In an instant, her consciousness appeared in the underworld. At this time, she and Leng Shiqi were a little surprised because Delta Origi did not appear in its original form. In front of Leng Shiqi, a gigantic phantom that was dozens of feet tall suddenly appeared. This phantom was dressed in a ferocious blood-red robe and had a crescent moon mask on its head. Ghostly chi constantly emanated from it. Yuanyang Mingyue Ghost Emperor. What's going on? Delta Origi was puzzled. However, as soon as she opened her mouth, she found that even her voice had changed. That voice sent chills down one's spine, yet it also made one feel reverence. Leng Shiqi's eyes moved. So this was the Netherlamp Phantom body. All members of the underworld who were summoned would appear in the form of a Dharma idol. This way the identities of each member would be protected. Only Leng Shiqi knew everyone's true identity. Of course, if others were willing to reveal their identities, it would be understandable. It was all voluntary. Leng Shiqi said, "This is an ability I discovered in the underworld. We can use this method to contact each other at any time." Delta Origi understood. The underworld is indeed unfathomable. You're the same. At this point, Delta Origi took a deep look at Leng Shiqi. Half a month ago, she suddenly heard that Leng Shiqi had become the new 4 great chiefs. This shocked her. Now, Delta Origi was still having a headache fighting for the position of Deputy Punishment Envoy, but Leng Shiqi had directly become the 4 great chiefs. This huge gap made Gu San exclaim in amazement, but it was also hard for him to not be convinced. Fortunately, she had long known that Leng Shiqi was abnormal. After adjusting her mentality for 2 days, she felt better. However, a few days ago she heard that Leng Shiqi had killed the Thousand Illusion Sword Sect Sky Origin Stage expert, Thousand Illusion Swordmaster. A Spirit Gang Realm expert killing a Sky Origin Stage expert. Delta Origi's first reaction was disbelief. However, reliable news from the Discipline Commission confirmed that this was indeed the case. This gave Delta Origi a great sense of defeat. Although she guessed that Leng Shiqi must have used some special method, in the end he had killed a Sky Origin Stage expert. This achievement was so terrifying that even Delta Origi felt a little discouraged. She was afraid that she would never be able to catch up to Leng Shiqi in this lifetime. Leng Shiqi continued to make seals. Not long after, the Dharma bodies of King Qingguang and King Pingdeng also appeared. He summoned Yushu and Hengming. The two of them were also surprised when they arrived. Yushu even exclaimed, "Brother Leng, oh Brother Leng, I've heard of your great feats. TSK, you are the 4 great chiefs of the Dark Thunder Guards. You even killed Thousand Illusion Swordmaster. I really admire you." "That's enough. I called you here to talk business." Leng Shiqi stopped Yushu from continuing. Yushu's tone became serious. Go on, go on." Leng Shiqi's expression immediately became serious. "Now that I am the 4 great chiefs, I have the authority to supervise the 4 provinces. I can easily gather large amounts of resources. At the same time, I can make many arrangements in secret. Hengming, the purgatory demon sect you belong to is in Tianshan County. It is under my supervision. I will do my best to help you get to the top. If you need anything, just tell me directly." Hengming didn't answer. He only nodded silently. Then Leng Shiqi said to Delta Origi, "The Discipline Commission and the Dark Thunder Guards have some missions that need to be completed together. That is why we have a good relationship. When my foundation is more stable, I will be able to help you." "I know," Delta Origi said simply. Yushu immediately became very envious. Leng Shiqi was now a moving money tree. It was a pity that the Extreme Blade Hall he belonged to was in the north of the Thunderblaze dynasty and didn't fall under Leng Shiqi's supervision. He couldn't get anything. Leng Shiqi naturally knew what Yushu was thinking. He waved his hand and took out dozens of jade slips. With a flick of his finger, these jade slips immediately emitted waves of light. Words flowed on the light screen. Seeing these words, Delta Origi and the others were delighted. This was because these jade slips recorded techniques and spiritual skills of rank 6 and above. These were things that Leng Shiqi had taken from Li Jueqing and Thousand Illusion Swordmaster. He picked out the ones that were most suitable for Delta Origi and the others. With these techniques and the legacy of the underworld, Leng Shiqi believed that their strength would increase greatly in a short period of time. Strength meant that they would be able to gain the favor of the upper echelons and accumulate more merits. From there, they would be able to climb up the ranks step by step. I hope that all of you can increase your strength as soon as possible. It is not for your respective factions or the Blood Garment Pavilion. It is for ourselves. Chapter 7:12. Delta Origi and the others did not stand on ceremony with Leng Shiqi. In fact, when they decided to join the underworld, they were already tied to Leng Shiqi. The 4 of them did not kill their way out of the Blood Mist Island to be the Blood Garment Pavilion's tools. They did not dare to betray the Blood Garment Pavilion, but at the very least they had to leave a way out for themselves. Delta Origi memorized all the spiritual techniques that were suitable for her, then asked, "Now that you have made the fastest progress in the Blood Seed plan and have reached the true upper echelons of the Thunderblaze dynasty, I think the Blood Garment Pavilion will contact you soon." "I've already thought of that," Leng Shiqi said. "Previously, Ink Frost Ghost Man always arranged for the Blood Garment Pavilion's people to be by my side at the most suitable time. Not only does he know my whereabouts like the back of his hand, but he also knows the various forces in the Imperial capital very well. I guess the Blood Garment Pavilion's Blood Seed plan is far more than just the 4 of us. Perhaps they had this plan a long time ago. In the Imperial capital, there are even people from the Blood Garment Pavilion in the Dark Thunder Guards and the Discipline Commission. The Blood Garment Pavilion has big plans. Next, they will definitely give me all the missions and use my identity to do things. Although this will be a little troublesome, it is also possible to find out the Blood Garment Pavilion's ultimate goal." Delta Origi said, "It's good that you know it in your heart. That's all for today. You all should hurry up and cultivate." After Leng Shiqi reminded them, everyone dispersed. When Leng Shiqi returned to his secret room, he heard a commotion outside. He frowned and walked out. He saw that most of the experts under his command had gathered here. Deputy Manager Renyi, who was the leader, said in a deep voice, "My lord, news just came from the palace. His Majesty is critically ill. I'm afraid he can't hold on so fast. Leng Shiqi was very surprised. He had seen Lei Qingjun up close. With Lei Qingjuan's physical condition, he seemed to be able to hold on for a year and a half. If those experts in the divine origin realm were willing to help, it would not be difficult to keep him alive for a while longer. Why was he suddenly critically ill? Not to mention that Lei Qingjun had just annihilated dozens of top-notch and first-rate sections. His reputation was unprecedentedly high. As the saying goes, when a person encounters a happy event, he would be in high spirits. He should be happy. However, Leng Shiqi suddenly thought that perhaps it was because Lei Qingjun had already done what he wanted to do the most and had no other worries in his heart. It could also be said that his body had been on the verge of collapse for a long time. It was only by relying on his willpower that he was able to hold on until now. The question Leng Shiqi was most concerned about was who the crown prince was. Seeing that Lei Qingjun was on the verge of death, it meant that the Thunderfire dynasty would soon have a new emperor. Leng Shiqi and the other important officials were naturally concerned about who the next emperor would be. After the incident with Air Scar Sky, the four most promising princes had their titles and authority stripped away. They were all placed under house arrest in their own mansions. On the other hand, the princes who had been chased away to their fiefdoms were summoned to the imperial capital. However, at that time, Leng Shiqi happened to be in Pinghui County. After he returned, he went into seclusion. Therefore, no one knew who had obtained the position of crown prince. Therefore he asked, "Which prince is the current head of the Eastern Palace?" Renye's expression stiffened. He said, "Sir, you may not know, but the position of the Eastern Palace is still vacant." The position of crown prince is still vacant? Leng Shiqi could not understand. Since Lei Qingjun knew that he could not hold on any longer and had summoned the candidates to the imperial capital, why had the crown prince not been chosen yet? Lei Qingjun should know very well that if he died before appointing a crown prince, the Thunderfire dynasty would definitely fall into internal strife. Perhaps the stability that he had just established for the Thunderfire dynasty would be lost because of this. Leng Shiqi did not think that Lei Qingjun would be so stupid. He also did not think that Lei Qingjun would not have thought of this. Therefore, Leng Shiqi felt that Lei Qingjun had either not made up his mind or was plotting again. He was plotting with his own life. This was not impossible. Lei Qingjun had used his birthday banquet to set up layers of chess, including the entire Thunderfire dynasty and the various princes. What if Lei Qingjun had purposely spread the news that he was in critical condition? What was his goal? Renyi saw that Leng Shiqi did not speak, so he continued, "Not long ago, His Majesty summoned the slaughtering king, King Hui, and king into the imperial capital, intending to choose one of the three to succeed the throne. However, forgive this subordinate for speaking bluntly. Among the three princes, King Hui is addicted to wine, King In is a martial arts fanatic, and the slaughtering king is a mediocre person. None of them can take on such a great responsibility. In comparison, the first prince, fourth prince, ninth prince, and 13th prince are all many times stronger than them. What a pity." Leng Shiqi also understood Renye's meaning. In fact, Lei Haoyin and the others were all good candidates to succeed the throne. However, because they had colluded with the spirit cultivator sect, they were placed under house arrest by the furious Lei Qingjun. On the other hand, the slaughtering king Lei Haoga and the others were not capable. They were caught in a dilemma, so the position of crown prince was still vacant. Leng Shiqi didn't know much about King Hui and King In. If he had to choose a general among the dwarves, Lei Haoga had the highest chance. He had interacted with Lei Haoga for a period of time. The slaughtering king was not very bright, but at least he had some. Furthermore, he had never given up on Leng Shiqi. Just as they were talking, a eunuch hurried over and bowed. "Chief Steward Lu, His Majesty has summoned His Majesty to the palace." Leng Shiqi secretly transmitted to Renyi, "Withdraw all of your forces in case anything happens." This subordinate obeys. Following this, Leng Shiqi followed the eunuch into the palace. On the way he met a few important officials of the imperial court. Looking at the situation, it seemed that Lei Qingjuan's time really was running out. Leng Shiqi quickly entered the palace and waited in the main hall. He turned to look and saw that the Grand Commander, Heavenly Sovereign He Yen, Steward Hai, and Shintazhen had already arrived. In addition, the Grand Commander of the Discipline Commission and the 4 punishment envoys were all present. There were also many officials coming in. Only Eunuch Gao was not present. As His Majesty's personal attendant, he should be by Lei Qingjuan's side. The officials were all whispering to each other, and the atmosphere in the hall was very heavy. After about an hour, just as everyone was getting anxious from waiting, the humble prince walked into the hall with heavy steps. Behind him were 3 dejected people. The slaughtering king Lei Haoge was one of them. Leng Shiqi guessed that the other 2 were probably King Hui and King, and judging from their expressions, it seemed that neither of them had obtained the position of crown prince. He was even more confused as to what Lei Qingjun wanted to do. As soon as the humble prince appeared, the hall immediately quieted down. He stood at the front of the crowd, in other words, in front of the dragon throne. His Majesty has passed away. Chapter 7:13. Hearing the words "passed away," the hall suddenly fell silent for a while. However, the sound of crying was immediately heard. The crying was truly heart-wrenching, as if their loved ones had died. The humble prince looked at all of this expressionlessly, because he had seen this scene dozens of years ago. It was almost the same as the one he had seen before. After a quarter of an hour, the middle-aged man standing at the head of the officials wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes. "Your Highness, the country can't go a day without a ruler. I wonder which prince His Majesty appointed as the crown prince before his death? I will do my best to assist the new emperor and raise the prestige of the Thunderfire dynasty." The person who spoke was the current prime minister of the Thunderfire dynasty, Mo Linhui. When he asked this question, the crying in the grand hall stopped abruptly, and all the people looked at the humble prince. As officials, they were most concerned about who the new emperor would be. After all, the new emperor had his own officials. Whether they could continue standing here would be decided by the new emperor. However, the humble prince said something unbelievable. He said, "His Majesty only appointed half a crown prince." Half a crown prince? Leng Shiqi also felt that these 4 were very strange. The position of crown prince was not an object. If there was one, there was one. If there was no one, there was no one. What did he mean by only half a crown prince? In addition, perhaps once bitten, twice shy. He did not believe that Lei Qingjun was really dead. Everyone else was stunned. The humble prince continued, "His Majesty left a verbal order before he passed away. The slaughtering king, Lei Haoge, will temporarily enter the Eastern Palace but cannot inherit the throne. His Majesty gave the slaughtering king a year. During this year, the slaughtering king and I will govern together." Leng Shiqi finally understood. It turned out that Lei Qingjun had chosen the slaughtering king, Lei Haoge, out of the 3 of them. However, Lei Qingjun also knew that Lei Haoge was still not capable enough. He was still a bit worried and wanted to use a year to train him. Not to mention what contributions Lei Haoge could make. As long as he didn't cause any trouble within a year, the throne would be firmly in his grasp. Lei Haoge was also overjoyed. He obviously didn't know about this before and thought that Lei Qingjun didn't choose any of them. The officials, led by Mo Linhui, immediately knelt before Lei Haoge and said, "Greetings, Your Highness the Crown Prince. Long live Your Highness." Lei Haoge's face lit up with joy. "Everyone please rise. Rise." Seeing this, the humble prince frowned slightly, but the frown disappeared immediately. In his opinion, Lei Haoge was too impatient. Lei Qingjun had just died and he was already acting like an emperor. The civil and military officials did not care about this. The younger Lei Haoge was, the more incompetent he was. This was actually a good thing for them. If the emperor was too shrewd and far-sighted, they, as courtiers, would have to tread carefully as if they were walking on thin ice. But if it was the other way around, it would be completely different. Facing a useless ruler, they would naturally be able to use their power for personal gain. Rumble. Just as everyone stood up, a violent tremor came from the palace gates. All the powerhouses in the palace looked toward the palace gates at the same time, including Leng Shiqi. He did not need to activate his supercilious eyes to sense a powerful force of the oneness of heaven and men's state rushing toward them rapidly. That force contained horrifying flames and coldness. Only one person could have such a strange force, and that was the crown prince, Lei Haoyan. As expected, a human-shaped ferocious beast wrapped in purple flames broke through the imperial guards and rushed to the gate of the palace. Those courtiers who did not have high cultivation immediately ran behind Leng Shiqi and the others in a panic. The purple flames suddenly disappeared, and Lei Haoyan, who looked determined, appeared. At this moment, a dozen people appeared behind Lei Haoyan and surrounded him. All of them were in the oneness of heaven and men's state. Lei Haoyan looked directly at the humble prince and said in a deep voice, "I want to see my father." The humble prince closed his eyes and sighed slightly. "Lei Haoyan, do you know how serious a crime it is to break into the palace?" "I know." Lei Haoyan's voice suddenly became louder. "I also know that with my uncle and the powerhouses of the Imperial Hall of Worship here, I can't break through. Now, I just want to see my father again. I want to ask him face to face why I am inferior to them." Lei Haoyan pointed at Lei Haoge and the other 2. If my father wants to pass the throne to Lei Haoran or Lei Haoyun, I have nothing to say. I also believe that they have the ability to rule the Thunderfire dynasty. However, if my father really gives the throne to these three good-for-nothings, I won't accept it. Hearing this, Lei Haoga, King Hui, and King Yin felt as if they had swallowed a fly. This was especially true for Lei Haoga, who had just become half the heir to the throne and was recognized by all the civil and military officials. Now, Lei Haoyan was pointing at him and calling him a good-for-nothing. He was so angry that he had already decided to tear Lei Haoyan into pieces after the registration. In fact, he also thought that whether it was Lei Haoyan, Lei Haoran, or Lei Haoyan, they were all very good. Any one of them was qualified for the throne. Unfortunately, they had violated Lei Qingjuan's taboo. Haoyan, you know best why you lost your chance. Colluding with the spirit cultivator sects is your father's reverse scale, but you can't see through it. You can't blame others for this. His tone was much gentler. Could it be that what my father did was right? Lei Haoyan was still unconvinced. We have always been hostile towards the spirit cultivator sections. The discipline commission is in the open, and the Dark Thunder Guards are always watching them. However, this is not the way to go. It will only make the enmity between us and the spirit cultivator sects grow deeper and deeper. Even if my father's heavenly might descended and destroyed many top sects and first-rate sects, shocking the world, those forces do not dare to resist in the slightest. However, all of this will only continue to expand the conflict. One day this conflict will explode. The longer we suppress it, the more it will explode. At that time, the Thunderfire dynasty will only welcome the crazy counterattack of the spirit cultivator sections. If the Starfall dynasty and Northern Wei dynasty add insult to injury, the Thunderfire dynasty will be in danger. Right now, I just want to see my father and let him tell me in person that he wants to dethrone me. Otherwise, even if I die, I will not die in peace. He said so many words in a row, causing everyone to be stunned. However, immediately many ministers began to refute him. They felt that Lei Haoyan was spouting nonsense and worrying for nothing. However, in Leng Shiqi's heart, he felt that Lei Haoyan's words made some sense. When Leng Shiqi was still a supervisor, he had already noticed this point. Those sects and families were very resentful towards the Discipline Commission and the Dark Thunder Guards. However, they did not dare to speak out because they were afraid of the Thunderfire dynasty's power. The emperor shook his head. Perhaps you are right, but you are one step too late. Your father has already passed away and passed the throne to the slaughtering king, Lei Haoga. Lei Haoyan was immediately stunned. Chapter 7:14. Lei Haoyan's eyes widened and became bloodshot. He suddenly roared, "No, I don't believe it." It was unclear whether he didn't believe that Lei Qingjun had died just like that, or that Lei Haoga had taken the throne. He glared at Lei Haoga with his bloodshot eyes. The purple flames around his body flickered like a wild beast. Lei Haoga felt a chill run through his body as he was stared at by an enraged Unity of Heaven cultivator. He couldn't help but shiver. Lei Haoyan clenched his fists and gathered the fire spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The amethyst frost flame burned fiercely, activating all the arrays in the hall. Lei Haoyan, what are you doing? The shoddy prince roared. No one had ever dared to make a move in this hall. Die. Lei Haoyan turned into a stream of fire. The majestic purple flames seemed to want to devour everything. You disappoint me too much. King Zhuozhen gently waved his hand, and the horrible purple flame was instantly extinguished. At the same time, a huge force slapped Lei Haoyan, sending him flying and crashing into the array in the hall. Lei Haoyan was covered in blood, but his bloodshot eyes were still staring at Lei Haoga. The first prince, Lei Haoyan, trespassed the palace and tried to harm the crown prince. He is stripped of his status and imprisoned for life. Take him away. The shoddy prince decided Lei Haoyan's fate with a single sentence. He had already shown mercy by not killing Lei Haoyan. Lei Haoyan was then dragged out. Lei Haoga sneered. At this moment he also realized that he was no longer the same person as before. So what if Lei Haoyan was strong? Could he be stronger than the Imperial Guards in the Imperial Hall of Worship? He was already imagining how he would torture Lei Haoyan in the future. Leng Shiqi shook his head as he watched Lei Haoyan being dragged away. In fact, Lei Haoyan shouldn't have come today. It didn't matter when Lei Qingjun died. If he had hidden himself and accumulated strength, he might have had a chance to turn the tables. However, he had nothing now and even offended Lei Haoga. He would die a horrible death sooner or later. Minister Mo, yes, your majesty. Mo Linhui cupped his hands. His majesty has passed away. You should be in charge of the state funeral. Also, the slaughtering king, Lei Haoga, should be preparing for his coronation ceremony, but it's best to keep a low profile. Mo Linhui stole a glance at Lei Haoge. Seeing that he didn't seem to be dissatisfied, he immediately said, "Don't worry, Your Highness. This old subject will definitely make the appropriate arrangements. You have served 3 emperors, so I'm not worried. The crown prince will also need your advice." The humble king winked at Lei Haoge. Lei Haoge immediately stepped forward and said respectfully, "Minister Mo, please teach me. Your Highness, this is what I should do." They kept calling him Your Highness the Crown Prince, which made Lei Haoge's heart burst with joy. When he thought about how he would be able to ascend to the throne in a year's time, he felt even more elated. Leng Shiqi could see this from Lei Haoge's expression. Since he could see it, the court officials were all sly old foxes. They probably didn't have a high opinion of Lei Haoge. After that, most of the officials returned to their homes. The rest had to arrange for the state funeral and the coronation ceremony as soon as possible. Leng Shiqi, Heavenly Lord He Yen, and the others returned to the Dark Thunder Guard headquarters together. Heavenly Lord He Yen sighed. His Majesty's death was a bit sudden. There are still some things that have not been properly arranged. In the year before the Crown Prince ascends to the throne, we cannot let our guard down. The Grand Commander is right. However, I'm afraid that some people won't put their minds on supervision and instead focus on fighting for power, Steward Hai said as he stroked his long beard. Leng Shiqi narrowed his eyes. He had taken back Pinghui Prefecture. This Steward Hai couldn't help but want to make things difficult for him. However, he could only talk for now. At this critical juncture of the change of imperial authority, the Grand Commander would never allow the 4 chiefs to fight among themselves. Therefore, Leng Shiqi didn't even bother to say a word and kept his mouth shut. Heavenly Lord He Yen looked around and waved his hand. "You're all dismissed. Do your own things. I'll take my leave." The 3 of them left at the same time. During this time, Steward Hai kept looking at Leng Shiqi with ill intentions. However, Leng Shiqi didn't respond at all. When they separated, Steward Hai's expression suddenly changed. He seemed to be thinking about something. He's getting more and more shrewd. Not bad, not bad. Lei Qingjuan's state funeral was scheduled for 5 days later. As one of the 4 stewards, Leng Shiqi naturally had to attend. When the emperor died, the entire Thunderfire dynasty had to mourn for him for 3 days. Only when he saw Lei Qingjun being buried in the imperial mausoleum with his own eyes did Leng Shiqi confirm that he was really dead. This emperor, who was described as mediocre, had produced a shocking spark at the end of his life. He didn't waste his time in this world. Lei Haoge's coronation ceremony was 10 days after the state funeral. Leng Shiqi also went to go through the motions. There weren't many people invited to the coronation ceremony. Most of them were those who were in the main hall. The process was also relatively simple. After all, Lei Qingjun had just died and it wasn't appropriate to be too ostentatious. After the coronation ceremony ended, Leng Shiqi prepared to go back and cultivate in seclusion for a while. In any case, he now had control over the 4 major states and counties. It would be difficult for him to fight for supervisory authority in a short period of time. Moreover, he still had a large number of techniques and spiritual techniques to comprehend. He also planned to break through to the unity of heaven and man realm as soon as possible. Therefore, he could finally cultivate in seclusion peacefully. However, Lei Haoge's personal eunuch, He, stopped him. "Steward Liu, please wait. His Highness the Crown Prince has something to discuss with you." Leng Shiqi paused. His mind was spinning rapidly. He had worked together with Lei Haoge in Shantai County before. However, Lei Haoge's attitude back then wasn't very good. Could it be that Lei Haoge was preparing to settle the score now? Leng Shiqi sneered in his heart. If that wasn't the case, then so be it. However, if Lei Haoge really dared to anger him, he had more than 10 ways to kill Lei Haoge. "Eunuch He, please lead the way." He and Eunuch He walked to a side hall. Lei Haoge was leaning on a golden-scaled throne. When he saw Leng Shiqi, he immediately said, "Lord Liu, you're here. I've been waiting for a long time." Lei Haoge's tone was full of arrogance. In Leng Shiqi's eyes, he felt like a nouveau riche. He said calmly, "What is it, Your Highness the Crown Prince? Just say it." "How dare you? How dare you be so rude to His Highness the Crown Prince?" The eunuch beside Lei Haoge immediately shouted. "Lord Liu is my esteemed guest. Back in Shantai County he helped me a lot. I'll let him off the hook." Lei Haoge said unhappily to the eunuch. However, there wasn't a trace of dissatisfaction in his words. Instead, he mentioned what happened in Shantai County. Leng Shiqi only felt a little amused. Lei Haoge had just become the Crown Prince and he was already so arrogant? If he were to become the Crown Prince, he would probably be so arrogant. "If Your Highness the Crown Prince doesn't have anything else to say, I'll take my leave." Leng Shiqi pretended to leave. Lei Haoge stood up. His expression darkened. Lu Xingji, I'm already the crown prince. Are you still looking down on me? I'll be honest with you. Today I'll give you a chance to surrender. As long as you swear to be loyal to me forever, everything in the past can be written off. After I become the crown prince, the position of Dark Thunder Guard commander will be yours sooner or later. Leng Shiqi understood that Lei Haoge wanted to rope him in and cultivate his own team. However, he pretended to be confused. Your Highness the Crown Prince, what are you talking about? I'm naturally loyal to the Thunderblaze dynasty. Lei Haoge sneered. Don't play dumb with me. If you don't obey me today, don't blame me for being rude. Come out. Immediately, 3 people walked out from the back of the side hall and surrounded Leng Shiqi. They were all experts in the unity of heaven and man realm. Chapter 7:15. As the Crown Prince, Lei Haoge naturally had some experts under him. The 3 of them formed a triangle around Leng Shiqi. What is the meaning of this, Your Highness? Leng Shiqi's expression also darkened. In fact, there was already a faint killing intent in his heart. Lu Xingji, if you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, then don't blame me. Now, this consort will ask you one last time, are you going to pledge allegiance to this consort or not? Lei Haoge finally revealed his true intentions and roared fiercely. However, the more he acted like this, the more disappointed Leng Shiqi was in him. Perhaps Lei Haoge had been suppressed for too long, and suddenly a throne fell from the sky, causing some mental problems. At the same time, Leng Shiqi became more confident because he could see that Lei Haoge needed his support and strength. The Dark Thunder Guards were in charge of the world's intelligence. As the Crown Prince, Lei Haoge naturally couldn't take over the Dark Thunder Guards, so he needed the Dark Thunder Guards' intelligence to help him do things. Among the Dark Thunder Guards, Heavenly Venerable He Yen wouldn't pay attention to him, and it would be difficult for the other 3 directors to submit to him. Director Hai's seniority was too high. His prestige in the Dark Thunder Guards was only second to the Grand Commander. Moreover, he was already old. How many years could he be one of the 4 directors? He wouldn't stand in line. Xuanhuan had a strong military background. Lei Haoge didn't have any military power in his hands, so it was impossible for him to order Xuanhuan around. As for eunuch Gao, he was the previous emperor's personal attendant. He had followed the previous emperor for decades, and now his status was even higher. Even Lei Haoge, the Crown Prince, couldn't move him. Therefore, among the Dark Thunder Guards, only Leng Shiqi was the most suitable. As one of the 4 directors, his cultivation and power weren't high, so he was the most worthy person to be roped in. In fact, if Lei Haoge was polite and offered some practical benefits, Leng Shiqi might consider it. However, Lei Haoge was about to make a move, so it was impossible. Lei Haoge, you really can't change your nature. Even if you become the Crown Prince or even the Emperor, you're still trash. Leng Shiqi couldn't be bothered to feign civility. You. Lei Haoge was stunned at first, then immediately flew into a rage. Lu Xingji, how dare you? Men, seize him. The 3 Unity of Heaven realm cultivators moved their spirit power, and waves of powerful spirit pressure rushed over. However, Leng Shiqi's expression didn't change. He turned to Eunuch He and said, Eunuch He, you are a smart man. Lei Haoge has become the Crown Prince, but he hasn't made any progress. Instead, he is narrow-minded, arrogant, and unworthy of the position. Is this what you want to see? Also, do you really think that the 3 of them can keep me here? A spirit sword that emitted a faint rainbow-colored radiance suddenly appeared. The sword did not move, but that terrifying sword intent filled the entire side hall. The sharp sword chi instantly caused the 3 Unity of Heaven realm experts to retreat. Level 8 Earth Soldier. One of them shouted in shock. How is this possible? That is the treasure of the Thousand Illusion Sword sect, the Thousand Illusion Sword. Seeing that the situation was not good, Eunuch He walked to Lei Haoge and said, Your Highness, Lu Xingji's strength is very strong, and he has the Thousand Illusion Sword. I'm afraid that the 3 of them really can't take him down. Your Highness, don't be impulsive. Think about it. Last time when he was in Shantai County, he was only at the late stage of the spiritual aperture realm, and he was just a supervisor. Now he is at the late stage of the gang spirit realm, and he is one of the 4 directors of the Dark Thunder Guards. His terrifying growth speed is too amazing. We'd better rope him in rather than make him an enemy. And we also need his strength to make Your Highness sit firmly on the throne of the Crown Prince, so that you can make some achievements within a year. When Your Highness ascends the throne in the future, you can do whatever you want with him. He secretly transmitted the last sentence and didn't say it out loud. It was also the last sentence that finally calmed Lei Haoge down. Lu Xingji, I won't force you. Go back and think about it. I'm waiting for your answer. After saying that, Lei Haoge directly flicked his sleeves and left. Eunuch secretly sighed. The current Lei Haoge was indeed very different from before, but as a servant he could only persuade him a little. He waved his hand to let the three masters leave and turned to Leng Shiqi and said, Lord Lu, His Highness is young and impetuous after all. Please don't take it to heart. Lord Lu, you can also think about what His Highness said. His Highness will never treat you badly. Leng Shiqi didn't believe it. He said a few perfunctory words and turned to leave. After returning to Xingji Pavilion, he arranged all kinds of things and prepared for seclusion. As for the matter that Lei Haoge asked him to think about, he didn't take it to heart. Among the various forces controlled by the Thunderflame dynasty, there were three that were outside the imperial power. The first was the Imperial Hall of Worship, where there were countless experts. These people had always been elusive. As long as something extremely important didn't happen in the Thunderflame dynasty, they wouldn't show up. Naturally, the imperial power couldn't control them. In addition, there were the Dark Thunder Guards and the Discipline Commission. These two forces were directly under the emperor. However, the Thunderflame dynasty didn't have an emperor now, so they were also in a situation where no one could control them. Therefore, Leng Shiqi concluded that Lei Haoge couldn't reach the Dark Thunder Guards, so he prepared to ignore him and go into seclusion. However, when he was about to enter the secret chamber, two people found him. They were Feng Shamo and Xuanhuan, who hadn't shown up for a long time. After returning from the Western Wilderness Prefecture, they also went into seclusion. Now, Feng Shamo's cultivation was the same as Leng Shiqi's, at the 8th level of Gang Spirit Realm. And Xuanhuan also broke through to Gang Spirit Realm. They also knew about Leng Shiqi's recent achievements. Feng Shamo's eyes flashed with undisguised dissatisfaction and strong fighting spirit. He said, I heard that you killed Thousand Illusion Swordmaster. Senior brother Feng, you must be joking. It's just luck. Xuanhuan didn't want to complicate things, so she continued, your speed of improvement is incredible. No wonder Master and the others value you so much. You didn't disappoint them. Since you are now one of the 4 directors and have enough strength, we plan to go back to the Blood-Robed Pavilion. Leng Shiqi also felt that they should go. After all, their identities were still not perfect. Going back to the Blood-Robed Pavilion would save them from being exposed. Okay, I'll arrange it for you. The next time we meet, I'll definitely beat you. Feng Shamo left these words before leaving. Looking at Feng Shamo's back, Leng Shiqi suddenly thought that Feng Shamo might be a good choice to recruit into the underworld. With Feng Shamo's talent, it wasn't a big problem to obtain the inheritance of the 10 Kings of Hell. But the key was that Feng Shamo's identity was too sensitive, and he was arrogant and ambitious. Unless he could guarantee that Feng Shamo wouldn't reveal the underworld, he still had to consider carefully. Keeping this matter in mind, Leng Shiqi announced to the outside world that he would completely enter seclusion. Unless there was something urgent, no one was to disturb him.